Chapter 28. I agree. Mo Chanhin pondered for a moment and nodded. There was more than one Emperor Luangrass. If they could get one, it wouldn't hurt to give one to Chu Fengmian. After all, if they waited for the experts from Wusheng Academy to arrive, they wouldn't be able to get a single Emperor Luangrass. We agree too. Seeing Mo Chanhin nodding, Yun Jialan and Yu Zhanqing also nodded in agreement. Mo Chanhin was the leader of their group. Moreover, Chu Fengmian had saved their lives earlier. One Emperor Luangrass was more than enough to repay his kindness. Only Wang he was hesitant, as if he wanted to say something. However, seeing that everyone agreed, he could only nod helplessly to show his agreement. All right, let's not delay any longer. Otherwise, it will be bad if we're discovered by others. Haolan hurriedly said when she saw that everyone had agreed. Everyone swallowed a few medicinal pills and healed their injuries. Then, they hurriedly left. There's one more thing, Chu Fengmian suddenly said when they were about to leave. This puzzled the other five, especially Wang He. There was already a hint of impatience on his face. He didn't want to share the Emperor Luangrass with Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Fengmian had something to say, he became even more impatient. I have a grudge with someone from Wusheng Academy. If I go with you, I may implicate you. You must think carefully. Chu Fengmian said. He didn't intend to hide his conflict with the young hall master of Wuyan Hall. After all, it was caused by Chu Fengmian. He didn't want to implicate others. Someone from Wusheng Academy? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the five of them looked a little strange. Who is it? Mo Chanhin was the first to ask. Even if they were from Wusheng Academy, there was a hierarchy. If it was just an ordinary disciple, they wouldn't need to care. I don't know his name, but he said he was the young hall master of Wuyan Hall. Chu Fengmian said. The Wusheng Academy was divided into countless halls. Even with the memories of Chu Fengmian's body, he only knew of the existence of the Wusheng Academy. He did not know much about the various matters within the Wusheng Academy. Young hall master of Wuyan Hall? Ding Hao? Mo Chanhin blurted out. Obviously, he had also figured out who it was. As expected, it's him. I've always said that the only person who causes trouble every day is this trash. Haolan said coldly. Obviously, she did not have a good impression of Ding Hao. That's right. This fellow has indeed come to the desolate mountain range for training. Although he said that he is here for training, he actually brought a bunch of slaves with him. Mo Chanhin said coldly. Given Ding Hao's character, he had a bad reputation in Wusheng Academy. Brother Chu, don't worry. Even if Ding Hao comes, just say that you're a friend. I want to see what he can do. Mo Chanhin glanced at Chu Fengmian and said indifferently. Especially when they mentioned Ding Hao, their tone was full of disdain, which made Chu Fengmian a little surprised. After all, Ding Hao was the young hall master of one of the halls in Wusheng Academy. Yet these people did not care about him at all. It seemed like the status of this group of people was not low in the Martial Victory Academy. At the very least, those who could become inner disciples would have some influence. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. It was not easy to become an inner disciple of Wusheng Academy. Generally speaking, ordinary warriors could enter Wusheng Academy. It was not easy to become an outer disciple. As for inner disciples, only the geniuses among geniuses could enter. Apart from the true monstrous geniuses, most of the inner disciples were disciples of the major clans in Wusheng Academy or disciples of the hall masters of the various halls. Brother Chu, don't worry. If Ding Hao dares to find trouble with you, I'll deal with him. Haolan said with a laugh. Let's go. We should go to the pool. Yes, the Emperor Luangrass is more important. Let's hurry. The group of people hurriedly moved and walked towards the pool. Danger was everywhere in the desolate mountain range. Perhaps there were extremely dangerous demonic beasts hidden in ordinary places. After Chu Fengmian inquired about the specific location of the pool, he walked at the very front and led the group of people to walk. Along the way, Chu Fengmian walked in front and could occasionally hear the conversations of the people behind him. Senior Mo, why did you agree to give him the Emperor Luangrass? You should know how precious the Emperor Luangrass is. It can be exchanged for hundreds of thousands of contribution points in Wusheng Academy. Wang He secretly glanced at Chu Fengmian. When he saw that Chu Fengyan was walking in front, he said to Mo Chanhen, "In my opinion, he's not a disciple of any major faction. Giving him some benefits should be enough. It's a waste to give him a stalk of Emperor Long grass." Hao Lan said indignantly when she heard Wang He's words. "Wang He, you're wrong. Brother Chu just saved our lives. Is a stalk of Emperor Long grass not worth the lives of the 5 of us? No, he saved our lives. When we return to Wuxing Academy, we can repay him. But the price of the Emperor Long grass is too high." Wang He's words were filled with greed. A stalk of Emperor Long grass was definitely worth a lot. Now that he thought about giving it away for free, his heart ached. "Junior Wang, don't say any more. I've already agreed to it. A stalk of Emperor Long grass is enough to repay Brother Chu for saving our lives." Mo Chanhen said calmly. "That's right. Senior Wang, you're too stingy. Can our lives be worth a stalk of Emperor Long grass?" Yun Jialan, who had been silent all this while, spoke up. She was dissatisfied with Wang He's words. "Damn it, all of you, being targeted by everyone." Wang He also understood that he could not say anything now. He could only snort coldly and leave silently. "All of you don't understand the value of the Emperor Long grass. All of you are targeting me. This brat saved us. He must have taken a liking to our identities and wants to get some benefits." Wang He thought viciously as he walked at the back of the group. This was the conversation between Wang He and the others. Even though their voices were soft, Chu Fengyan could still hear them clearly. Chu Fengyan couldn't help but sneer. Many cultivators valued benefits more than anything else. They would do anything for resources. Wang He was clearly such a person. However, the injustice in his heart had nothing to do with Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan deserved the Emperor Long grass, but if Wang He dared to cause trouble, Chu Fengyan wouldn't be polite. Chapter 29. The terrain of the desolate mountain range was complicated. It was only 10 miles away from the pool, but it would take a long time to get there, especially when there were some places that could be passed through. But if they were the territories of some powerful demonic beasts, they could only take a detour. Now that they were in the middle of the desolate mountain range, there were many body refinement stage demonic beasts. Any one of them was not to be trifled with. "Stop!" Chu Fengyan suddenly stopped in front of a mountain stream. "Big Brother Chu, what's wrong?" Hao Lan asked from behind, finding it strange. "Take a detour. There are demonic beasts in this mountain stream. They're not easy to deal with." Chu Fengyan looked at the mountain stream and calmly said. As he spoke, he planned to walk to the right. "Take a detour." Hearing his words, the 5 people behind him frowned and looked around. The mountain stream was surrounded by tall mountains. If they want to take a detour, it would definitely waste a lot of time. If there were really demonic beasts that were not easy to deal with, taking a detour was the safest choice. However, once they took a detour, it would waste a lot more time. Wang He furrowed his brows and said with some resentment in his voice, "Chu Fengyan, you've already taken a detour 4 or 5 times and wasted so much time. What if the Emperor Phoenix grass was taken by others?" "Wang He, what are you talking about? Didn't Big Brother Chu say that? There are demonic beasts in this mountain stream." Hao Lan could not help but refute Wang He's words. Chu Fengyan saved them without asking for any benefits. This made Hao Lan have a good impression of Chu Fengyan. After that, even the Emperor Phoenix grass was brought up by him. Chu Fengyan asking for one of the Emperor Phoenix grass was nothing. After all, if it was a greedy cultivator, they would probably become hostile and capture them. At that time, they would ask where the Emperor Phoenix grass was and kill them to silence them. In the world of cultivators, such things were common. Because of this, Hao Lan's face showed some anger when she heard Wang He's words. Who knows if it's true or not? We didn't even see a shadow of a demonic beast along the way. Wang He coldly snorted, his voice full of suspicion. "I suspect that he is intentionally stalling for time so that others can snatch the Emperor Longgrass before us. This way, he can keep it for himself." As Wang He spoke, although he sounded skeptical, his gaze toward Chu Fengyan was already filled with hostility. Yu Zhanqing said from the side, "It can't be. Brother Chu has always been with us. It's impossible for him to spread the news. Who knows if he has a sound transmission jade talisman and sent out the news long ago. Look, we've been through this mountain stream before. There are no demonic beasts there. It's dangerous. Wang Yi pointed at the mountain stream and said. This caused the other people's expressions to change slightly. Indeed, they didn't encounter any demonic beasts when they walked past this mountain stream. After Wang He finished speaking, he looked at Chu Fengmian with a sneer on his face. He wanted to see how Chu Fengmian would explain himself. If you don't believe me, you can go there yourself. Chu Fengmian glanced at Wang He and said calmly, If you believe me, you can take a detour with me. There is the aura of demonic beasts in the mountain stream ahead. Chu Fengmian's intuition couldn't be wrong. Although his cultivation level wasn't high, Chu Fengmian's sword intent was truly terrifying. When one sword intent was cultivated to an extremely high level, it was enough to see through danger. Naturally, Chu Fengmian could sense the danger in the mountain stream. Chu Fengmian had already warned them. If they didn't believe him, there was nothing he could do. I knew you wouldn't be able to explain yourself. After hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Wang Yi's face was filled with pride. It was as if he had guessed correctly. However, Chu Fengmian couldn't be bothered to explain. After all, it was up to them whether they believed him or not. Senior brother Mo, let's walk through the mountain stream. This way, we can save a lot of time. We can also see what this kid is up to. Wang Yi walked to Mo Chanhen's side and said, Mo Zhonghen was actually the leader of their group. It was important to convince Mo Zhonghen. Let's play it safe. Mo Chanhen pondered for a moment before looking at Chu Fengmian and saying, Since there are demonic beasts ahead, let's take a detour. All right, since senior brother Mo has said so, let's take a detour. Yu Zhanqing and Yun Jialan nodded. The two of them trusted Mo Chanhen the most. Since Mo Chanhen had spoken, they would naturally follow. As for Hao Lan, she trusted Chu Fengmian. In this way, including Chu Fengmian, there were a total of 5 people who wanted to take a detour. He was the only one who wanted to go through the mountain stream. You guys, Wang Yi's face turned red. He didn't expect that no one would listen to him. Damn it, look and see if there are any demonic beasts in the mountain stream. Wang Yi let out a furious roar as he walked toward the mountain stream. Junior brother Wang, it's dangerous. Mo Chanhen hurriedly shouted from the side. However, Wang Yi didn't listen to him at all. His footsteps became faster and faster. He quickened his steps and walked into the mountain stream. Look, there are no demonic beasts. It's just that kid trying to be mysterious. To think that you are all inner disciples of the Martial Victory Academy. You're all being tricked by a wild kid who came out of nowhere. When he reached the entrance of the mountain stream, Wang Yi turned around and said coldly, Do you see that? This mountain stream? Before Wang Yi could finish his words, a huge net fell from the sky and trapped Wang Yi's body. Demonic beast. Mo Chanhen's face changed when he saw the net. It's a hunter spider. In the crevice of the mountain stream, a 2 to 3 meter long black spider crawled out. When it saw Wang Yi fall into the net, it let out a few hisses. It seemed to be celebrating the capture of someone. A peak-tempered bone stage hunter spider. Hunter spiders were extremely difficult to deal with among the demonic beasts. They could weave a colorless net and wait for a warrior to step into it. They would use the net to trap the warrior's body, making it impossible for the warrior to break free. The net was extremely tough. Once trapped, death was certain. A peak-tempered bone stage hunter spider. What should we do? Mo Chanhen, Hao Lan, and the others' faces changed. However, no one dared to step forward. This was because once the hunter spider appeared, the surroundings would be covered with spider webs. If they acted rashly, it was very likely that they would step into the web and suffer the same fate as Wang Yi. Save me! Save me! Wang Yi, who was trapped in the web, saw the hunter spider approaching. His face was extremely pale. Chapter 30. Big Brother Chu. Hao Lan turned around and looked at Chu Fengmian. She was at a loss for words. It was Wang Yi who didn't listen to Chu Fengmian and wanted to provoke him. Now, he was the one who fell into the hunter spider's trap. However, Wang Yi was their comrade from Wusheng Academy. Hao Lan couldn't bear to see him die in front of them. The only person who could deal with the hunter spider was Chu Fengmian. Okay. Before Hao Lan could say anything, Chu Fengmian nodded and agreed. In Chu Fengmian's hand, he suddenly pulled out the dark azure sword and charged toward the mountain stream ahead. The instant Chu Fengmian stepped into the mountain stream, the surroundings seemed to cover the sky and earth. No less than 7 or 8 spiderwebs surrounded Chu Fengmian. "Big Brother Chu, be careful," Yu Zhanqing shouted worriedly. Once one was touched by any one of these spiderwebs, one would be trapped within. If one wanted to escape, one would have to reach the body refinement stage and use their strength to forcefully break the spiderwebs. Otherwise, it would be impossible to escape. Limitless sword dance. Chu Fengmian's face was calm. Facing the spiderwebs coming from all directions, his face was as calm as ever. It was as if he didn't care, even if there was great danger. The most important thing for a cultivator was to be calm. The more dangerous the situation was, the more one needed to be calm. This, Chu Fengmian slashed with the profound azure sword in his hand. In almost an instant, he slashed more than 10 times and cut the surrounding spiderwebs. Hiss. Seeing Chu Fengmian break the carefully laid trap, the hunter spider let out a hissing sound. It was as if it was enraged. Its huge body immediately pounced toward Chu Fengmian. It spat out a mouthful of venom. The most terrifying thing about the hunter spider was not only its spiderwebs, but also its venom. The venom was enough to corrode a person's flesh. Once touched, it would gradually melt the flesh. "Phantom," Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. His body was covered by the venom. However, the venom only covered Chu Fengmian's afterimage. Chu Fengmian's real body had already arrived behind the hunter spider. When the hunter spider sensed it and wanted to turn around, Chu Fengmian's sword had already pierced the hunter spider's head. Bang! Blood spurted out, and the hunter spider's huge body fell to the ground. The demonic core of the hunter spider can be sold for a good price. Chu Fengmian walked to the hunter spider's corpse, cut open its head, and took out a Yao core. He muttered as he put it into his storage pouch. "Junior Wang, are you all right?" Beside him, Mo Changhin also hurried forward and cut off the spiderweb on Wang He's body, rescuing him. "Brother Chu, we owe you another favor this time," Hao Lan said somewhat embarrassedly as she looked at Chu Fengmian at the side. It was clear that Wang He had fallen into Chu Fengmian's trap because he didn't trust Chu Fengmian. In the end, he still needed Chu Fengmian's help to resolve the problem. Hao Lan couldn't help but glare at Wang He. "It's good that you're fine. However, this time around, you'll be able to prove that I'm not lying." Chu Fengmian put away his sword and said calmly. After Mo Chanhin rescued Wang He from the spiderweb, he saw that Wang He wasn't injured at all and hurriedly said to Wang He, "Junior Wang, why aren't you apologizing to Brother Chu?" "Brother Chu, I was wrong." Wang He lowered his head and apologized, but his tone didn't sound like an apology at all. Instead, it was filled with resentment. He was resentful that Chu Fengmian didn't stop him from entering the mountain stream when he knew that there was a demonic beast inside. Instead, he waited for him to enter before attacking. Chu Fengmian clearly had the strength to deal with the hunter spider, but he asked them to take a detour. This made him lose face in front of everyone. "Damn it, he's trying to show me who's boss." Wang He shouted angrily in his heart. As an inner disciple of Wu Sheng Academy, he was already proud and arrogant. Now that he was being ordered around by an outsider like Chu Fengmian, he couldn't accept it, especially Mo Changhin, Hao Lan, and the others. They were all disciples of Wu Sheng Academy, but they didn't stand with him. Instead, they stood with Chu Fengmian and reprimanded him. So much so that when Chu Fengmian saved him, Wang He was still wondering why Chu Fengmian didn't stop him and kill the demon-hunting spider. Instead, he made him lose face. "It's all thanks to Brother Chu this time. We owe him a big favor." Hao Lan, Mo Changhin, and the others stood beside Chu Fengmian and said embarrassedly. Looking at this scene, Wang He felt even more jealous. Why was Chu Fengmian, a kid from a remote place, so respected? Why was everything he said refuted by others? Naturally, Wang He's thoughts couldn't escape Chu Fengmian's eyes. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian had experienced too much. Now, he could see through Wang He's thoughts with just a glance. However, Chu Fengmian didn't intend to argue with Wang He. He would only give him one chance. This time, Chu Fengmian saved him. But next time, Chu Fengmian wouldn't do it again. Since the hunter spider has been killed, let's go through the mountain stream, Chu Fengmian said. When he spoke, he didn't even look at Wang He. To him, Wang He was just an insignificant person. He saved Wang He for the sake of Hao Lan, Mo Changhen, and the others. This time, Chu Fengmian deliberately didn't stop Wang He to teach him a lesson. As for whether Wang He listened or not, Chu Fengmian didn't care. Okay, Mo Changhen nodded his head. Going through the mountain stream was indeed the fastest way. Everyone rested for a while, then stood up and walked into the mountain stream again. After passing through the mountain stream, they vaguely saw a dense forest not far away. After passing through the dense forest, a small pool came into view. At the center of the pool, there was a golden light that could be seen at a glance. The golden light wasn't big, but it was extremely eye-catching from afar. It's really the Emperor Phoenix grass. Looking at the golden herb that looked like a flying bird, Chu Fengmian exclaimed. This was the Emperor Phoenix grass. Moreover, it looked like an extremely old Emperor Phoenix grass. The dazzling golden light was the embodiment of spiritual energy. That's right. The Emperor Phoenix grass is on the island at the center of the pool. However, there is a gloom water cold snake in the pool. If we don't kill the gloom water cold snake, we won't be able to enter the island. Mo Changhen said from the side. The pool wasn't big. The island was only 10 meters away from the shore. For a warrior, a few steps were enough to walk across the water. Chapter 31. The dark water cold snake only lived in some cold pools. Usually, it would hide in the pools. When some demonic beasts came to drink from the pool, the dark water cold snake would suddenly appear and drag the demonic beasts into the water to kill and devour. If he wanted to walk on the surface of the pool and reach the island above, he would be swallowed by the serene water cold snake before he could even take a second step. Looks like the only way to get the Emperor Long Grass is to lure the dark water cold snake out and kill it. Chu Fengmian glanced around. That was the only way. It's easy to say, but I don't know if you can do it. Wang Yi mocked from the side again. Shut up. This time, before Chu Fengmian could speak, Mo Changhen reprimanded him coldly. Wang He, if you keep talking, you can go back to the academy by yourself. You don't have to follow us. Mo Changhen's words made Wang He shut up obediently. He didn't dare to say anything else. If he went back now, he wouldn't get a share of the Emperor Longgrass. Although he kept his mouth shut, Chu Fengmian could still see the coldness in Wang He's eyes. It seemed that Wang He had some ideas. Brother Chu, we'll have to rely on you to kill the dark water cold snake. Seeing that Wang He had shut his mouth obediently, Mo Changhen felt a little more at ease. At the very least, he didn't want Wang He to offend Chu Fengmian. After all, they had to rely on Chu Fengmian to deal with the dark water cold snake. At most, they could help from the side. If Chu Fengmian left in anger, they could only watch from the side. Okay. Chu Fengmian nodded. For the Emperor Longgrass, Chu Fengmian had to give it his all. A single Emperor Longgrass was enough to transform his current body. The aptitude of Chu Fengmian's current body could be said to be extremely poor. Although he could use the broken bone rebirth art to slowly open up his spirit veins, compared to a true genius, Chu Fengmian couldn't even find the starting line. To become a true expert, one's foundation and talent were the most important. Therefore, Chu Fengmian was determined to get the Emperor Longgrass. You guys stay away. Chu Fengmian turned around and said. Then, he walked to the edge of the pool alone. At a glance, this pool was dark blue in color and appeared bottomless. As one approached the pool, a wave of cold air greeted them. Ding! Chu Fengmian's black azure sword quietly pierced into the water, causing a ripple. After that, he stood by the pool and waited. He's here. After 3 breaths, Chu Fengmian's face suddenly turned serious. This was because he had already sensed an extremely dangerous aura rushing up from the depths of the pool. Bang! At the center of the pool, a huge figure suddenly jumped out. Seeing Chu Fengmian, the huge figure opened its mouth and pounced on Chu Fengmian. It really is a dark water cold snake that hasn't grown up yet. Chu Fengmian thought to himself when he saw the sudden appearance of the huge snake. An adult dark water cold snake could normally grow to a length of more than 10 meters. However, the dark water cold snake in front of him was only about 7 to 8 meters long. It was not fully grown yet. If it was an adult dark water cold snake, with Chu Fengmian's current strength, he could only run away. There was no way he could defeat it. After all, an adult dark water cold snake's strength was at the advanced level of the body refining realm. It could even step into the divine sea realm. However, even if it was not fully grown, the dark water cold snake in front of him had already reached the third level of the body refining realm. Third level of the body refining realm. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Although Chu Fengmian could easily kill a demonic beast at the first level of the body refining realm, it was hard to say if it was at the third level of the body refining realm, especially this dark water cold snake in front of him. It was one of the best among the demonic beasts. Its huge body was even more powerful. For the Emperor Phoenix Grass, I can only fight. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with determination. The Emperor Phoenix Grass was extremely important to him. Even if there was a glimmer of hope, Chu Fengmian had to fight for it. Phantom. The moment the dark water cold snake pounced, Chu Fengmian's body moved. He channeled all the spiritual energy in his body and activated the phantom body technique to quickly retreat to the side. Boom! The dark water cold snake's gigantic body smashed into the ground, creating a crater that was 5 to 6 meters wide. The dark water cold snake's strength was truly terrifying. The moment it came ashore, the ground around it trembled. Roar! The moment the dark water cold snake came out of the water, it brought with it countless amounts of cold water. Now, as the dark water cold snake moved, the cold water turned into ropes that filled the sky and formed a huge net, pressing down on Chu Fengmian from all directions. The art of water manipulation. Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed. The dark water cold snake had already comprehended the art of water manipulation. Demonic beasts like the dark water cold snake were born with a noble bloodline. For warriors, only those who had stepped into the divine sea realm and understood the spiritual energy of heaven and earth could learn the art of water manipulation. However, the dark water cold snake in front of him was already able to master the art of water manipulation even though it was still underage. This was their innate talent. They were incomparably proficient at it from birth. How can this dark water cold snake be so powerful? Mo Changhin stood aside and said in disbelief as he watched the dark water cold snake display the art of water manipulation. The strength of the dark water cold snake was worlds apart from that of the mountain barbarian bear, which was also in the body refining realm. With this art of water manipulation, even 100 mountain barbarian bears together would not be a match for the dark water cold snake. A kid from a remote place, a bumpkin. How dare he challenge the dark water cold snake with just a few moves of swordsmanship? He's really courting death. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was suppressed by the dark water cold snake's art of water manipulation, Wang He revealed a sinister smile. In his heart, he had already forgotten that Chu Fengmian had saved his life. Now, Wang He could not wait for Chu Fengmian to die in the hands of the dark water cold snake. Oh no, Big Brother Chu is going to be trapped in it. Hao Lan said. Although he was not strong, he was still from the Wuxing Academy. Naturally, he understood the strength of the dark water cold snake. Once Chu Fengmian was trapped in it, his spiritual energy would be consumed endlessly. When his spiritual energy was exhausted, Chu Fengmian would die without a doubt. Senior Brother Mo, let's work together to save Big Brother Chu. Hao Lan said hurriedly. He drew his sword and intended to rush forward. No need. The moment Hao Lan spoke, Chu Fengmian's figure moved. His body seemed to be dancing in the countless streams of water. What came at any time was a sword dance that filled the sky. Chapter 32. Sword Aura, Transformation. Hao Lan's face was filled with shock when he saw the sword dance. He was also a sword cultivator, so he knew that it was extremely difficult to comprehend the basics of the sword principle. The next step was just to hone one's swordsmanship. However, the sword chi manifestation was a completely different realm. The condensation of sword intent and the materialization of sword intent was something that only sword cultivators with extremely high attainments in sword intent could do. There were no more than 3 people in the entire Wuxing Academy who knew the sword aura transformation, and they were all elders of the academy. There had never been anyone like this among the disciples. However, Chu Fengmian's sword edge was the perfect manifestation of the sword aura transformation. Chu Fengmian could no longer hide his strength when facing the ghastly water snake. He displayed the strongest sword principle he had ever displayed in his previous life. Since you want to fight, let's fight to our heart's content. Chu Fengmian shouted and slashed at the ghastly water snake with a black azure sword in his hand. As Chu Fengmian drew his sword, several streaks of sword aura materialized and turned into sword edges. They slashed at the ghastly water snake. They hit the ghastly water snake's scales and made a crisp sound. Roar! The ghastly water snake looked at Chu Fengmian in shock. He did not expect that the person in front of him, who seemed like an ant to him, would suddenly display such terrifying sword intent. However, after the shock, it was more eager to fight. A monster's instinct was to fight. They would not back down when they met an expert. They would only fight. The two figures intertwined on the shore of the pool. The sword edge and the ghastly water snake's body kept colliding. This kind of battle is not something we can participate in. If we do, we will only distract Brother Chu. Mo Changhin said with a sigh. He was unwilling to give up. As an inner disciple of the Wu Sheng Academy, they were worthy of being called geniuses in the academy. However, they could not interfere in the battle between Chu Fengmian and the ghastly water snake. They could not even help. A casual attack from the ghastly water snake was enough to seriously injure them or even kill them. Is he really an 8th-level bone-tempering martial artist? Yun Jialan stared blankly at the battle in front of her. Could a martial artist at the 8th level of the bone-tempering stage really do that? Even a martial artist at the 3rd level of the body refinement realm would not be able to fight the dark water cold snake to a standstill. I'm afraid the geniuses of our Martial Victory Academy's core disciples are not worthy of the title of geniuses. Hao Lan muttered to herself. The Martial Victory Institute was known as the gathering place for all the geniuses of the Martial Victory Institute. However, compared to Chu Fengmian, those geniuses were like blocks of wood. How could this be? Wang Yi's expression was extremely gloomy. The more Wang Yi watched Chu Fengmian fight with the dark water frost snake, the more jealous he felt. He was an inner disciple of Wuxing Academy, a genius who had always been flattered by countless people. But now, in front of Chu Fengmian, his existence was worthless. How could Wang Yi accept this? He had always looked down on these natives from remote lands, yet they actually possessed enough power to overwhelm him. Wang Yi looked at the Emperor Luan grass on the island and thought greedily. Power! As long as I can get the Emperor Luan grass and improve my aptitude, this Chu Fengmian is nothing. No way. I must get the Emperor Luan grass. Sword is limitless. Chu Fengmian no longer had any scruples when his sword aura form was exposed. The current Chu Fengmian looked completely different from before. If the previous Chu Fengmian still looked a little childish, the current Chu Fengmian was definitely an invincible ancient almighty. This level of sword aura could be released at any time. This was the former Chu Fengmian, the former number 1 sword aura user. Chu Fengmian condensed countless sword auras and slashed at the dark water cold snake. Bam! Bam! A few of the scales on the dark water cold snake's body were hit by the sword aura. Immediately, cracks appeared and purple blood flowed out. No matter how hard the dark water cold snake's scales were, they were all broken by the sword aura. Roar! The dark water cold snake was in pain. It suddenly realized that Chu Fengmian's power was not as weak as it looked. It had already sensed the danger of death. The gloom water cold snake's huge body smashed towards Chu Fengmian. However, at the same time, the gloom water cold snake's body turned around. It quickly ran towards the direction of the pool. After all, the dark water cold snake was a demonic beast in the water. When it came to the shore, it could only use less than 30% of its power. If not for the fact that Chu Fengmian was extremely weak in the eyes of the dark water cold snake, the dark water cold snake would have chased after him. The dark water cold snake's intelligence was not much inferior to a human's. When it sensed the danger, its first reaction was to return to the pool. If the dark water cold snake returned to the pool, even if Chu Fengmian stepped into the body refining realm, he might not be able to kill the dark water cold snake. After all, the dark water cold snake could dive into the pool. If Chu Fengyan chased after it, the dark water cold snake could easily kill Chu Fengyan in the water. Stop him! Chu Fengyan roared. Mo Changhen and Hao Lan reacted immediately and pulled out their swords. They faced the dark water cold snake and slashed at it. The two of them also knew that they could not let the dark water cold snake escape into the pool today. Now that the dark water cold snake was injured by Chu Fengyan's sword chi on the shore, it was the best opportunity to kill it. If the dark water cold snake was allowed to return to the pool, it would be impossible to lure it out. They could not miss this opportunity to kill it while it was weak. Bam! Bam! However, the dark water cold snake was a demonic beast at the 3rd level of the body, refining realm. Even if it was injured, it was not something that Mo Changhen and Hao Lan, who were at the peak of the bone-tempering realm, could handle. The two of them were sent flying by the huge body of the dark water cold snake. Even so, it was enough to buy some time. Today you will be killed. Chu Fengyan looked at the dark water cold snake and snorted. He had already caught up. Mo Changhen and Hao Lan's delay had given Chu Fengyan an opportunity to catch up. 9 levels in 1 sword. Above the tip of Chu Fengyan's sword, a sharp sword chi instantly filled the air. The dark azure sword pierced the dark water cold snake's body. The sword pierced through the dark water cold snake's body. There seemed to be countless spiritual energy churning within the dark water cold snake's body. The body of the gloom water cold snake was twisted, and blood flowed out from the wound. Chapter 33. Phew! Chu Fengyan's tensed nerves finally relaxed as he watched the dark water cold snake's body slowly sink into the water. A sense of exhaustion filled Chu Fengyan's mind. His body was still too weak at the moment. Just bursting out the sword will in the form of sword chi was already exhausting his body. He could only maintain it for a minute at most before he reached his limit. He sat cross-legged on the ground, took out a few energy-gathering pills, and swallowed them in one gulp. Chu Fengyan's expression gradually relaxed as he felt the pure spiritual energy melting in his body. Dealing with the dark water cold snake had forced Chu Fengyan to use his full strength. If the dark water cold snake had not underestimated its opponent and chased after Chu Fengyan on the shore, Chu Fengyan might not have been able to deal with it. After all, the dark water cold snake was hiding in the pool. Chu Fengyan could not possibly fight the dark water cold snake in the water. That would be courting death. Are the two of you all right? Chu Fengyan looked at Mo Changhen and Hao Lan, who were resting on the ground, and asked. The two of them had just taken a direct hit from the dark water cold serpent. Even though the attack was not at full strength, their clothes were still badly damaged. We're fine, just a few broken ribs, Mo Changhen said with a smile. Although his chest hurt, it was nothing compared to the Emperor Luan grass that could be obtained. Let's hurry up and get the Emperor Luan grass, Mo Changhen said excitedly. The Emperor Luan grass was definitely a treasure that any warrior would want to obtain. Even he was extremely excited. Mo Changhen stood up and turned his head towards the direction of the island. Suddenly, his expression changed. Wang He, what are you doing? Just a moment ago, Wang He had not said a word, so the others thought that Wang He was beside them. They did not expect that Wang He had secretly taken advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention to run in the direction of the island. Of course I'm going to get the Emperor Luan grass. Do you really think that the Emperor Luan grass will be given to you? Naive. Wang Yi sneered when he heard Mo Changhen's words. Only a fool would divide the Emperor Luan grass equally. If I were to obtain the Emperor Luan grass alone, my aptitude would rise to a terrifying level. At that time, all of you would be defeated by me. As he spoke, Wang He quickened his pace and ran towards the island. Damn it, don't tell me you want to keep it all to yourself. Hearing Wang He's words, Mo Changhen's expression was both shocked and angry. Although Wang He had a grudge with Chu Fengyan along the way, Mo Changhen didn't pay much attention to it. However, he didn't expect Wang He to be planning to take all the Emperor Luan grass for himself. Even though they were not close in the Martial Victory Institute, they were still good friends. However, the Emperor Luan grass had turned them against each other instantly. It wasn't just Mo Changhen. Hao Lan, Yin Jialan, and Yu Zhanqing all had the same expression on their faces. None of them could believe what they were seeing. The only one who was calm was Chu Fengmian. This scene seemed to be a common occurrence. Even Chu Fengmian had expected such a scene from Wang Yi's performance just now. People like them were born into nobility, especially those who grew up in the Martial Victory Institute. They had almost never come to the outside world and grew up in an ivory tower. Naturally, they didn't know the dangers of the outside world. The value of a single Emperor Luan grass was not only enough to turn friends against each other, but also some extreme martial artists, even brothers and parents would turn against each other. There might even be a life and death grudge between them. Let's go. Let's chase after him. Hao Lan took the lead and planned to chase after Wang Yi. Those Emperor Luan grass were obtained after painstakingly defeating the Gloom Water Cold Snake. She definitely wouldn't let Wang Yi take it all for himself. However, before Hao Lan could move, Chu Fengmian suddenly reached out and pulled her back. Big brother Chu? Hao Lan turned around and looked at Chu Fengmian strangely. She didn't understand Chu Fengmian's actions. However, in the next second, just as Wang Yi was about to step onto the island, a huge body suddenly jumped out of the pool. Roar! The Gloom Water Cold Snake. The Gloom Water Cold Snake that was hit by Chu Fengmian's sword didn't die. Instead, it was hiding in the pool. Now that Wang Yi stepped into the pool, it instantly jumped out. Its huge mouth was aimed at Wang Yi and swallowed him whole. Ah! There was only a scream, and then there was no more sound. With Wang Yi's strength, he didn't have the slightest ability to resist in front of the Gloom Water Cold Snake. It finally came out again. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed some killing intent. His figure suddenly rushed towards the pool. When Chu Fengmian finished his attack, he knew that the Gloom Water Cold Snake didn't die. Chu Fengmian's attack just now was enough to destroy the Gloom Water Cold Snake's internal organs. However, the Gloom Water Cold Snake had the bloodline of a flood dragon and extremely strong vitality. Even if its waist was cut open, it wouldn't necessarily die. Wang Yi's sneaky move just now could be hidden from others, but how could it be hidden from Chu Fengmian's eyes? He didn't move on purpose because he wanted to use Wang Yi to lure the Gloom Water Cold Snake out. Sure enough, even if the Gloom Water Cold Snake was severely injured, it would still rush out if someone invaded its territory. This time you must die. Chu Fengmian looked at the Gloom Water Cold Snake, and the tip of his sword flashed. Countless sword chi rushed towards the Gloom Water Cold Snake. The Gloom Water Cold Snake seemed to have sensed the danger. After swallowing Wang Yi, it hurriedly jumped out of the pool. But this time, Chu Fengmian wouldn't give it a chance. Countless sword chi cut through the water and smashed into the Gloom Water Cold Snake's body. Bam! Bam! A series of loud noises came from the pool. Following that, a large amount of blood dyed the pool purple. Soon, the Gloom Water Cold Snake's body floated out of the pool. Dead. Now, the Gloom Water Cold Snake finally died under Chu Fengmian's sword. At the same time, a corpse gradually floated out of the Gloom Water Cold Snake's body. This, looking at the dead Wang Yi, Mo Changhan's expression was somewhat helpless. But Wang Yi's death couldn't be blamed on others. He wanted to take the Emperor Phoenix grass for himself, but he died at the hands of the Gloom Water Cold Snake. It can only be said that Wang Yi died because of his own greed. If he hadn't been greedy, he wouldn't have ended up in the snake's mouth. Bring his body back to the academy. Chapter 34. After all, Wang Yi was still an inner disciple of Wuxing Academy. If he really died outside, it would not be a small matter. Bringing Wang Yi's corpse back to the academy was also an explanation. Okay. Hao Lan nodded, took out a storage bag, and put Wang Yi's corpse inside. Although he did not like Wang Yi, now that Wang Yi had died outside, it was better to bring his corpse back to the academy. Chu Fengmian did not care about what to do with Wang Yi's corpse. He walked to the side of the Gloom Water Snake's corpse and cut open its head with his sword. He took out a crystal clear monster pill and put it into the storage bag. This Gloom Water Snake had inherited the bloodline of a flood dragon. Its monster pill also contained traces of dragon power, which was enough to refine many elixirs. Its price had always been very high. It would not be a problem to sell it for more than 100,000 bone-tempering pills. This Gloom Water Snake was killed by Chu Fengmian alone. This elixir should belong to Chu Fengmian. After putting the monster pill into the storage bag, Chu Fengmian walked towards the center of the island. In the center of the island was a huge rock. In the crevices of the rock, there were golden, bird-shaped emperor lawn grass. A total of 5. Chu Fengmian could not help but exclaim. From afar, he could only see a golden glow. Now that he looked closer, Chu Fengmian realized that there were 5 emperor lawn grass. The emperor lawn grass was a spiritual medicine that could only grow under the power of the ancient divine beast, the Phoenix clan. Usually, it would only appear in the birthplace of the ancient phoenix or the birthplace or burial place of some demonic beast with the ancient phoenix bloodline. Normally, there would only be 1 emperor lawn grass. In some places, 2 or 3 emperor lawn grass would be born at the same time. However, Chu Fengmian had never heard of 5 emperor lawn grass in his previous life. It was no wonder that he was so surprised. Let's take them all first. These few emperor lawn grass were now emitting a dazzling golden glow. This was a sign that they had completely matured. If he wanted to take them, the medicinal power would be perfect. Normally, there were some taboos when picking earth-level spiritual medicines. For example, some spiritual medicines could not be picked by hand. They needed a special jade plate. There were also some spirit herbs that would wither once they left the soil, so they had to be dug up along with the soil. However, the royal lawn grass did not have such a taboo. As long as it matured, it could be plucked. Chu Fengmian gently touched it with his hand, and a stalk of emperor lawn grass fell into his hand. The emperor lawn grass looked extremely similar to a real golden bird. Not long after, all 5 stalks of emperor lawn grass had fallen into Chu Fengmian's hands. Chu Fengmian placed one of them into his storage pouch and walked towards the other 4. There are a total of 5 stalks of emperor lawn grass. This Chu has already taken 1 stalk. The remaining 4 stalks are just nice for each of you to have 1 stalk. Chu Fengmian said as he extended his hand and handed it to everyone. Thank you, Brother Chu. Mo Chanhan glanced at Chu Fengmian and said gratefully. He took away one of the trees. Hao Lan, Yin Jialan, and Yu Zhanqing also took 1 each. The first stalk of emperor lawn grass had the greatest effect. However, the second and third stalks would also have the same effect. It was just that the effect was not as good as the first stalk. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, it would be a piece of cake for him to take away all the emperor lawn grass. However, Chu Fengmian did not have the intention to do so. After all, they had already agreed that he would only take 1 stalk. Chu Fengmian would not go back on his words. He, Chu Fengmian, had always been a man of his words. It's best for you to quickly keep the emperor lawn grass so as to avoid any trouble. Chu Fengmian reminded them. Although they knew the use of the emperor lawn grass, they definitely did not understand its value. A single stalk of emperor lawn grass was enough to create a peerless genius. Its value was much more precious than a peerless genius. After all, if a peerless genius could not be controlled, it would be meaningless for some clans and forces. However, with the emperor lawn grass, it could raise a loyal cultivator in a clan into a peerless genius. Its value was enough to make countless clans and forces go crazy. Even the current strongest force in Wusheng country, Wusheng Academy, would fight for the emperor lawn grass if they knew about it. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian knew about it once. At that time, a third-rate force in the continent, Jade Sword Sect, obtained a stalk of emperor lawn grass. This news was known by 9 Demon City, one of the 7 major sects at that time. In order to obtain the emperor lawn grass, 9 Demons City slaughtered thousands of disciples and tens of thousands of servants of Jade Sword Sect. In the end, they obtained the emperor lawn grass. If the emperor lawn grass appeared in the continent, it would probably cause countless bloody storms. Yes. Hearing Chu Fengmian's reminder, the 4 of them stopped looking at the emperor lawn grass and hurriedly kept it in their storage pouches. If the emperor lawn grass was discovered by others, it would be a disaster. This time, we have to thank Big Brother Chu. Yun Jialan kept the emperor lawn grass and thanked Chu Fengmian. Without Chu Fengmian, they would have to rely on the Academy's power to obtain the emperor lawn grass. Especially in that case, it would be hard to say who the emperor lawn grass would belong to. This time, Each of them had obtained a stalk of Emperor Luan grass, which was a great benefit. Haolan also said loudly, "Big Brother Chu, if you have any trouble in the future and we can help, please come to Wusheng Academy to find us. Especially that Ding Hao. If he dares to find trouble with Big Brother Chu, I will definitely beat him up." Mo Changhin also reminded, "That's right, Brother Chu. Ding Hao is narrow-minded and extremely vicious. You have to be careful. If you encounter any trouble, you can come to Wusheng Academy to find us." Okay, Chu Fengmian nodded. This time, he did not manage to kill Ding Hao, which was indeed a hidden danger. However, Chu Fengmian did not care too much. Ding Hao's strongest force was only the young hall master of one of the halls in Wusheng Academy. Given some time, Chu Fengmian would not be afraid even if he faced Wusheng Academy, let alone a young hall master. The next time Chu Fengmian met Ding Hao, it would be Ding Hao's death. "Brother Chu, we have to return to the academy. After all, we have been out for some time, and something like this has happened." Mo Changhin looked at Chu Fengmian and asked, "I wonder if Brother Chu wants to leave the barbaric mountain range with us. I still have to cultivate in the barbaric mountain range for a while, so I won't be leaving with you." Chapter 35. All right, we'll meet again if we're fated. Mo Changhin smiled when he heard Chu Fengmian's rejection. "If Brother Chu wants to join our Martial Victory Academy, you can look for us directly." Mo Changhin could also tell that Chu Fengmian did not belong to any faction. He was only a rogue cultivator. If such a genius were to join the Martial Victory Institute, it would greatly improve their influence in the Martial Victory Institute. The Martial Victory Academy was divided into countless factions and factions. They were a small group. Now, Mo Changhin wanted to rope Chu Fengmian in. "We'll see." Chu Fengmian smiled. He had no intention of joining any faction. After all, he had yet to settle the matters of the Lin Mansion. Chu Fengmian still had to fulfill the wish of this body. "Brother Chu, if you're free, you can come to the Martial Victory Academy to play with us," Haolan said with a smile. Unlike Mo Changhin, Haolan treated Chu Fengmian as a true friend and brother. This made Chu Fengmian have a good impression of Haolan. "All right," Chu Fengmian smiled and nodded his head. The two groups of people then split up and walked in different directions. Mo Changhin and his group walked towards the edge of the barbaric mountain range, while Chu Fengmian continued to walk towards the depths of the barbaric mountain range. After a day, Chu Fengmian finally returned to the edge of the pool. Chu Fengmian came to the barbaric mountain range to cultivate. Now that he had obtained so many beast cores and the Emperor Lawn grass, he had achieved his goal. Chu Fengmian originally wanted to leave, but a sudden discovery made Chu Fengmian come up with a new plan. There was a problem with the existence of the Emperor Lawn grass. The Emperor Lawn grass was a spiritual medicine that grew by fusing the blood of the ancient phoenix into the soil. It contained the purest and strongest ancient spiritual energy. The Emperor Lawn grass could use the ancient spiritual energy to open up the spiritual veins in a cultivator's body and strengthen their bloodline and physique. Therefore, it could create a peerless genius. Generally speaking, the places where the Emperor Lawn grass grew had the blood of the ancient phoenix. Most of them were places where the blood of the ancient phoenix was left behind after a battle. Being able to grow one was already extremely difficult. Now that 5 had suddenly appeared, there must be something hidden within. It was even possible that this pool was where the ancient phoenix had fallen. If this was really the place where the ancient phoenix fell, it would be a huge treasure. The ancient phoenix would never rest for thousands of years. If one could obtain some of its bones, it would be extremely useful. That was why Chu Fengmian didn't leave right away. Instead, he chose to return to the pool to investigate. There's something wrong with this pool. Chu Fengmian walked to the edge of the pool and bent down to touch the water. The water in the pool was bone-chillingly cold. It was probably colder than ice, but it did not freeze into ice. It could only be due to some powerful force that could create such a phenomenon. This pool is so deep that I can't see the bottom. There must be something hidden in it. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. All these intents were pointing to the bottom of the pool. "Let's go." Chu Fengmian looked around and saw that there was no one around. Then, he He took a big stride and jumped into the pool. The cold pool water instantly made Chu Fengmian shiver. The pool water was really too cold. Chu Fengmian had already stepped into the 8th level of the bone-tempering realm, and his body had become much stronger. However, Chu Fengmian was still shivering in the water. Chu Fengmian's mind moved. He distributed the spiritual energy in his body to every part of his body. As a result, Chu Fengmian felt that his body had become much warmer. Then he stabilized his body and swam towards the bottom of the pool. The pool water was already extremely cold. The further Chu Fengmian swam, the colder the pool water became. This caused the spiritual energy in Chu Fengmian's body to be consumed rapidly. At this rate, he was afraid that he would only be able to hold on for about a minute before he was completely exhausted. Ancient aura. The moment Chu Fengmian dived into the depths of the pool, his eyes suddenly widened. At the bottom of the pool, Chu Fengmian felt a weak spiritual energy. This spiritual energy was an extremely ancient and powerful spiritual energy. There really is something hidden under this pool. Chu Fengmian thought excitedly. If he could obtain some of the treasures of the ancient phoenix, Chu Fengmian would soar to the sky. However, Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy was about to be completely exhausted. No, I'm so close. I have to find out what it is. Chu Fengmian said angrily in his heart. The treasures were already within reach. How could Chu Fengmian give up now? All right. Suddenly, Chu Fengmian thought of something. He took out a jade bottle from his storage bag and opened it. Chu Fengmian held a cyan elixir tightly in his hand. The dew elixir. Before leaving the Lin mansion, the third elder specially gave Chu Fengmian this elixir. Chu Fengmian had been cultivating in the barbaric mountain range all this time and did not have time to refine it. Now, if he wanted to continue diving and replenish his spiritual energy, this dew elixir was the best way. I don't care. I can only fight. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. He put the dew elixir into his mouth. Refining elixirs was a task that required full concentration. It had to be done in a quiet place. Now that Chu Fengmian was in the depths of the pool, he had to consume spiritual energy at every moment to resist the coldness of the pool water. Under such circumstances, he had to forcibly refine the dew elixir. This was an extremely dangerous thing to do. Even Chu Fengmian was not confident. However, this time, Chu Fengmian had no choice. In a spurt of energy, he had to explore this pool to the end. As soon as the dew elixir entered his mouth, a burst of pure spiritual energy erupted. It relieved Chu Fengmian a lot of pressure. However, Chu Fengmian did not dare to relax. This relief was only temporary. When the dew elixir's efficacy was completely exhausted, Chu Fengmian's situation would be even more dangerous. He had to take advantage of this time to go to the bottom of the pool. At the bottom of the pool, there was almost no sunlight. Chu Fengmian could only rely on his spiritual energy to barely see the surroundings. This place seems to be a gate. Chu Fengmian looked at the pool beside him. There was a huge rock on top of it. His eyes revealed a strange expression. There was a door on the boulder. Who built a cave abode at the bottom of the pond? Chu Fengmian's expression changed slightly. He swam towards the huge rock. Only when he got close did Chu Fengmian see the gate clearly. Chapter 36. This spiritual sword was carved in the center of the stone door. Although it was only a sculpture, it was enough to let people see the sharpness of this spiritual sword at a glance. It was as if everything in the world was nothing in front of this sword. Although it was only the shape of the sculpture, one could feel such a terrifying sword edge and sword intent. The strength of the person who carved it was absolutely terrifying to the extreme. Extreme sword seal. When Chu Fengmian saw the spiritual sword carved on the stone door, the expression on his face could almost be described as shock. He looked at it again and finally confirmed that it was a spiritual sword carved on the stone door. Extreme sword seal. It's actually under the pool. Chu Fengmian frowned. Everything that appeared in front of him made him somewhat unable to understand. However, now was not the time for Chu Fengmian to continue thinking. The medicinal strength of that jade dew pill in his mouth was already about to be exhausted. Since it's the extreme sword seal, then I should be able to do it. Chu Fengmian secretly thought in his heart. From Chu Fengmian's body, a powerful sword intent suddenly burst out. The moment this sword intent burst out from Chu Fengmian's body, the spiritual sword carved on the stone door unexpectedly also burst out a shocking sword intent. These two sword intents were actually very similar. The two sword intents could only be seen blending with each other. From the stone door, a crack was opened with a bang. Seeing this scene, Chu Fengmian hurriedly moved his body and rushed into the stone door. Then the stone door hurriedly closed, blocking the pool outside. Only a small part of it was left behind. Chu Fengmian entered and finally slowly breathed a sigh of relief. In the depths of the pool, Chu Fengmian was almost exhausted. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground and took out a jade bottle from the storage bag. He poured out a few energy-gathering pills and swallowed them. As his spiritual power gradually recovered, Chu Fengmian's body also emitted a wave of heat, drying all the clothes on his body. Suddenly, he became much more refreshed. Phew, fortunately, I kept most of the sword intent. Otherwise, I almost couldn't even open this extreme sword seal. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself in a low voice. If he couldn't even open this extreme sword seal today, it would really be a joke. It was like a person who couldn't enter his own home. The extreme sword seal was actually a restriction created by Chu Fengmian's master, the master of sword principle. It required an extremely high level of sword intent to be able to open it. Furthermore, there had to be a way to open it. The Lord of the Sword Tao had once taught his disciples how to set up and open the extreme Tao sword seal. Naturally, Chu Fengmian remembered it. It could be said that the extreme path sword mark was indeed like Chu Fengmian's home. However, why would this extreme Tao sword seal appear in the barbaric mountain range? Chu Fengmian looked around with a hint of confusion in his mind. Only the Lord of the Sword Tao, as well as Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters, were capable of setting up such a seal. However, he still couldn't remember who had come to the desolate mountain range. The victorious martial nation was nothing more than a remote nation. In the past, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have chosen to come to such a small place. The master of the Sword Tao and his senior brothers and sisters wouldn't have come either. However, this extreme Tao sword seal couldn't be fake. At the very least, the person who left this cave residence was definitely related to Chu Fengmian. After Chu Fengmian's spiritual power recovered, he stood up, took out the black azure sword, and walked into the depths of the cave residence little by little. Although there were restrictions at the entrance of an ordinary cave residence, it was inevitable that some warriors would choose to set up some traps in the depths of the cave residence. Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters in his previous life were all peerless geniuses and famous super experts on the continent. Even if they casually set up a trap, it would be fatal to Chu Fengmian. He had to be on guard. Along the way, Chu Fengmian was extremely cautious and didn't encounter any traps. This cave residence wasn't deep. It looked like it was only a few dozen meters long before reaching the end. There was a wide cave at the end. It was at least 1,000 meters long. In the center of the cave, a huge skeleton was reflected in Chu Fengmian's eyes. That skeleton looked like a giant bird, and it was lying in the center of the cave all by itself, deep in sleep. Among them, the white bones were all showing a blue color. The skeleton had fallen for many years. Now, at a glance, it was still as bright as new. The majesty contained in it made Chu Fengmian's eyes serious, and he didn't dare to underestimate it. When the skeleton was alive, it was a real, almighty expert. The skeleton was immortal for 10,000 years and was as bright as new. Even if it had fallen for 10,000 years, if Chu Fengmian showed any disrespect, it would be extremely dangerous. It's been 10,000 years. In these 10,000 years, someone could break the extreme Tao sword seal and enter the cave residence. An old voice suddenly rang out. Countless green-blue flames suddenly appeared in the cave and lit up the cave with a green-blue color. Although the voice was extremely weak, it made people think of the majesty of the owner of the voice. Whoosh! Countless flames overlapped in front of Chu Fengmian, and the appearance of an old man with blue eyebrows slowly appeared. The old man's face was full of wrinkles, but it seemed that there was endless fighting spirit in his every move, as if he was a war god. Little guy, how did you break this extreme Tao sword seal? After 10,000 years, I'm afraid that no one can break this extreme Tao sword seal. Qing Wan, you're Qing Wan? When Chu Fengyan saw the old man's appearance, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in his mind, causing him to blurt out. In Chu Fengyan's voice, there was not only surprise, but also a trace of nostalgia. He didn't expect that after 10,000 years, he would actually meet an old friend. Little guy, you know me? Qing Wan's face revealed a somewhat strange expression. After 10,000 years, not only did someone break the extreme Tao sword seal, but they also recognized him. Chu Fengyan's expression and thoughts couldn't be faked. In front of an expert like him, if Chu Fengyan's words were a lie, it was enough to tell at a glance. However, there was only excitement and a kind of nostalgia in Chu Fengyan's expression, as if he had met an old friend. As expected, no one can recognize me after seeing this appearance. Chu Fengyan couldn't help but sigh. After 10,000 years, the world had changed, and the past was like clouds. Now that he had changed his body, even an old friend couldn't recognize him. Chu Fengyan calmed his emotions and said calmly, Chapter 37. You can't have forgotten this matter, right? Chu Fengyan's words seemed to have recalled 10,000 years ago. At that time, Chu Fengyan had already stepped into the peak of Sword Dao. Even a master of Sword Dao was inferior to Chu Fengyan's sword intent. However, no matter how strong Chu Fengyan's sword intent was, he had no spiritual power. As a result, Chu Fengyan had nothing to do and wandered around the heaven-ceasing peak. As for Qing Wan, he came because of his reputation and wanted to be apprenticed to the master of Sword Dao. The two met under the heaven-ceasing peak and wanted to compete in sword intent. If Chu Fengyan won, Qing Wan would agree to be his mount for a month. If Chu Fengyan lost, he would bring Qing Wan to see the master of Sword Dao. At that time, Qing Wan was in high spirits and felt that he couldn't lose to a trash who didn't even have a spiritual vein. However, Chu Fengyan still won in the end. Thus, he wandered around the continent with Qing Wan for a month. Other than Chu Fengyan, perhaps only Qing Wan knew about this matter. After all, it wasn't a glorious thing for a descendant of a divine beast to be used as a mount. Chu Fengyan didn't mention this matter, and Qing Wan wouldn't take the initiative to say it. Sword duel onto the heaven-ceasing peak. Qing Wan's eyes revealed a strange look. After hearing the latter part, there was only shock left on his face. You're Chu Jianbai? The kid who won against me back then? If it's not me, would anyone else know about this matter? Chu Fengyan looked at Qing Wan and sighed. However, the former Chu Jianbai has already fallen under the heaven-ceasing peak. The current me is called Chu Fengyan. Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, Qing Wan suddenly realized that the current Chu Fengyan was not similar to the Chu Jianbai in his memory. The only thing he had was the sharp sword intent on his body. A dream of 10,000 years. I don't know if it's good or bad. The world has changed. My old friends are all gone, leaving me alone. Chu Fengyan sighed. How could he not want to die with his master, his senior brothers, and senior sisters? Now, only Chu Fengyan was left in the world. Seeing Qing Wan again, Chu Fengyan was also incomparably happy. After all, he was once a good friend, and he couldn't help but recall the past of 10,000 years. Reincarnation. It seems like you have reincarnated. Qing Wan looked at Chu Fengyan and murmured. Reincarnation is an illusory concept to begin with. Even your master, the Lord of the Sword Dao, was unable to touch upon the Dao of reincarnation. But even if he is reincarnated, it is impossible for him to have memories. Reincarnating with memories is unheard of in this world. Qing Wan said slowly. He himself was an invincible expert, but in his opinion, reincarnation was incomparably illusory. If he hadn't seen Chu Fengyan again, he wouldn't have believed it. The fate of heaven and earth is truly mysterious. It's not something that can be comprehended by mere mortals. Qing Wan sighed. I never would have thought that you would be the only one who survived out of the countless disciples of the former Sword Dao master. The Sword Dao Lord had countless geniuses among his disciples. Many of Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters were super experts whose names shook the continent. However, all of them fell under the pursuit of the 7 great sections. On the contrary, Chu Fengmian, the youngest disciple, didn't have a spirit vein. Instead, he was reincarnated. This made people sigh. Qing Wan, how did you fall as well? Chu Fengmian looked at Qing Wan in surprise. Chu Fengmian was well aware of Qing Wan's strength. He was strong enough to be ranked at the top of the continent. Among Chu Fengmian's senior brothers, there were no more than 3 who could defeat Qing Wan, especially Qing Wan, who had the bloodline of the Phoenix clan, an ancient divine beast. He had a long lifespan. Although 10,000 years was a long time, it wasn't enough for him to fall. But now, it seemed that Qing Wan had also fallen. Now, he was just a shadow condensed by a wisp of spiritual power left behind. Of course, it's the people of the 7 great sections. Qing Wan's eyes were filled with boundless resentment. He, who was invincible, was forced into a desperate situation and died. Naturally, his resentment was boundless. The people of the 7 great sects also found me among the countless disciples who were pursuing the Sword Dao Lord. They wanted me to hand over the countless techniques and sword techniques left behind by the former Sword Dao Lord. Qing Wan said coldly. Although Qing Wan wasn't the disciple of the Sword Dao Lord, he had followed the Sword Dao Lord for a long time. Naturally, he knew some of the techniques and sword techniques left behind by the Sword Dao Lord. It seemed that after the people of the 7 great sects realized that they couldn't get those techniques and sword techniques from Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters, they set their sights on Qing Wan. Qing Wan said sternly, "But I've already burned those ancient swordsmanship books. Those people of the 7 great sects will have to pay a price if they want to kill me. In the end, if it wasn't for the monster in 9 Demon City, I might not have fallen. But that monster was also killed by me. The monster in 9 Demon City? Is it the Bloodlust Sword Demon? In 9 Demon City, he was the only one who could be called a monster." Now, Chu Fengmian suddenly saw that there was a long sword under the huge skeleton. This long sword was close to 2 meters long. There were purple veins on the sword. These purple veins were extremely demonic. Even if it had been sealed for 10,000 years, it was enough to see the demonic aura within. The Bloodlust Sword? Your body is actually suppressing this demonic sword. Chu Fengmian was shocked. The Bloodlust Demon Sword was a spiritual weapon that was once famous in the continent. It could be said that this Bloodlust Demon Sword was even stronger than a heaven-ranked spiritual weapon in terms of grade. However, his reputation was not only spread because of his strength, but also because of the terror of the Bloodlust Demon Sword. Every owner of the Bloodlust Demon Sword would eventually be corrupted by the Bloodlust Demon Sword and become a sword demon that only knew how to fight. It was no wonder that there were no more rumors about the Bloodlust Demon Sword in the present time. From the looks of it, the blood-slaying demon sword had been suppressed in the mountain cave by the Azure Luan's body for 10,000 years. That's right. My soul has always existed to suppress this Bloodlust Demon Sword. Qing Wan looked at the Bloodlust Demon Sword and said, "If I sit by and do nothing, this sword will definitely cause a storm of blood when it appears on the continent again. So, I've waited for 10,000 years for such a fated person to come to this cave and hand this Bloodlust Demon Sword to him. Now, I didn't expect to meet you," Qing Wan said. His voice was already extremely weak. It seemed that his soul could not hold on for much longer. Chapter 38. You're saying that you want to give this bloodbath demon sword to me? Chu Fengmian looked at Qing Wan and said with some surprise, "This bloodbath demon sword was a true demon sword. No matter who its master was, they would be affected by it and fall into madness." But now, it seemed that Qing Wan wanted to give this bloodbath demon sword to Chu Fengmian and let him take it out. That's right. Qing Wan nodded and looked at the bloodbath demon sword. This demon sword's power is extremely powerful. In fact, whether a weapon is good or evil is not determined by itself, but by its master. Even if it's a demon sword, as long as one can control it well, it will be an excellent aid, Qing Wan slowly said. In fact, Those who became sword demons were mostly immersed in the power of this bloodbath demon sword, causing it to become their master. That's why they fell into madness. But if they're clear-headed, this bloodbath demon sword is worthy of being a peerless weapon. Hearing Qing Wan's words, Chu Fengmian nodded in agreement. That's right. There was no distinction between good and evil in a weapon. Their good and evil depended on the person controlling the weapon. If a benevolent weapon was obtained by a homicidal maniac, it would also be stained with blood. On the contrary, if a kind person obtained this bloodbath demon sword, they would only view it as a powerful weapon. I don't have much time left. If this continues, sooner or later, I won't have the power to suppress this bloodbath demon sword. At that time, if this bloodbath demon sword appears outside and is obtained by others, it will easily cause a bloody storm. Rather than that, why don't I give this bloodbath demon sword to you? Qing Wan looked at Chu Fengmian and said with deep meaning, If I'm not wrong, the current you can already cultivate. Yes, Chu Fengmian replied. After being reborn, the current Chu Fengmian could finally cultivate. In the future, you might even surpass your master. Qing Wan looked at Chu Fengmian and said, This was not flattery, but something that the master of the sword Dao had once said. Chu Fengmian's sword was unparalleled in the world. His understanding of the sword even surpassed that of the lord of the sword Dao. If Chu Fengmian could really cultivate it, his future achievements would surpass that of the lord of the sword Dao. Take it. You're the only one who can control this demonic sword. Qing Wan waved her hand, and the demon sword flew out with a bang, landing in Chu Fengmian's hand. As soon as the bloodlust demon's sword entered his hand, Chu Fengmian felt a sense of familiarity. It was as if the bloodlust demon sword was tailor-made for him. As expected of a true divine weapon, Chu Fengmian couldn't help but praise. True divine weapons didn't require great strength to be able to control them. For example, the bloodlust demon sword could be picked up and used by even an ordinary person. Because of this, the bloodbath demon sword was extremely terrifying. Even if an ordinary person obtained the bloodbath demon sword, they could become a sword demon that could shake the entire continent. The moment it entered his hand, Chu Fengmian felt a tyrannical feeling fill Chu Fengmian's mind. Even Chu Fengmian was almost affected. It's indeed a demonic sword. It's actually enough to disturb its master's mind. Chu Fengmian said in a low voice. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian's willpower was firm. As a person of two lives, his willpower was probably not inferior to those peak experts in the world. Although the influence of this demonic sword was terrifying, it had no effect on the current Chu Fengmian. Instead, it was enough to make Chu Fengmian even more determined. Sure enough, you're the only one capable of subduing this demon sword. Qing Wan praised when she saw that Chu Fengmian's aura didn't fluctuate in the slightest. If it were an ordinary person, the moment they obtained the bloodlust demon sword, they would probably be corroded by the consciousness of the bloodlust demon sword and become a sword demon that only knew how to kill. But the current Chu Fengmian wasn't affected in the slightest. I've engraved 3 layers of seals on this demonic sword. Only when your strength is enough can you unlock the seals. Only then will all the power of this demonic sword erupt. Qing Wan said, Unless it's absolutely necessary, don't rashly unlock the seals. Your current realm is really too low. If you unlock all the seals of this bloodlust demon sword all at once, causing all its power to erupt, I'm afraid you won't be able to resist the corrosion of its consciousness. Only when your realm is enough can you unlock the seals. At that time, it'll also be the time when you truly control this bloodlust demon sword. Chu Fengmian nodded. He naturally knew that this demonic sword that shook the continent naturally wouldn't have such weak power. At least Chu Fengmian knew that as long as an ordinary person held this bloodlust demon sword, it would be enough to easily kill Divine Sea Realm, Wind Controlling Realm, and even Divine Power Realm warriors. It would be easy. Now this seal was also helping Chu Fengmian control this demonic sword. Alright, the sword master once gave me a medicinal pill at the last moment and told me to give it to you. However, at that time, I was already being chased by the people of the 7 great sects, so I naturally didn't have the chance to find you. Today, it's enough for me to complete this matter before the last moment. Qing Wan's figure began to slowly thin out. This was a sign that his spiritual power was about to be exhausted. Once it was completely exhausted, Qing Wan's soul would also dissipate. For you. Qing Wan slowly took out a jade box in his hand. This jade box was carved out of white jade. The moment Chu Fengyan took it and opened the jade box, he was almost enveloped by a pure medicinal power. This is the 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill. Chu Fengyan opened the jade box and saw the medicinal pill quietly placed inside. His mouth was almost wide open. The 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill was a top-grade heaven-level medicinal pill. It was said to be a divine pill that could allow a cripple with broken spiritual veins to condense new spiritual veins in one fell swoop. Master, you actually still remember my body at the last moment. Chu Fengyan's voice was somewhat choked. At the last moment, the Sword Master had already sensed the threat from the 7 great sects, but at this time, he still remembered Chu Fengyan's body. In his previous life, Chu Fengyan was an orphan who had never even seen his own parents. He was single-handedly raised by the Sword Master. Since taking Chu Fengyan as his disciple, the Sword Master didn't take in any other disciples. Even Qing Wan was just an ordinary person who followed the Sword Master. Chapter 39. Refine it. I will also use the last of my strength to help you refine it. Qing Wan looked at Chu Fengyan and said in an extremely weak voice, I don't have much time left. All right. Chu Fengyan picked up the 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill and put it into his mouth. This 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill was a top-grade heaven-level pill. Even Chu Fengyan in his previous life had never refined such a grade of pill. The moment this 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill entered his mouth, the little bit of medicinal power that just erupted made Chu Fengyan's body suddenly expand. It was as if the medicinal power was too great and wanted to break through Chu Fengyan's body. Sword. Chu Fengyan frowned and roared. On Chu Fengyan's body, a huge sword intent burst out. This sword intent turned into a giant python that swallowed the sky and began to devour the spiritual power that overflowed from Chu Fengyan's body to help Chu Fengyan refine this 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill. Boom! In an instant, the 5th spiritual vein on Chu Fengyan's arm was broken. At the same time, not only the 5th, 6th, and 7th spiritual veins began to be filled with spiritual power. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fengyan's 7 spiritual veins were forcibly broken in the battle of his body. This was just the beginning. Next, the 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill in Chu Fengyan's mouth was constantly pounding Chu Fengyan's body with its huge medicinal power in an instant. Not only Chu Fengyan's arm, but another spiritual vein on Chu Fengyan's back was opened. The 8th spiritual vein. In the memory of Chu Fengyan's body, among the geniuses of the entire Lin family, only one person had broken through to the 7th spiritual vein. As for those above the 7th spiritual vein, he did not know. But now, the 8th spiritual vein on Chu Fengyan's body had already broken through. Continue to open it. The medicinal power of this 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for you. If you can open more spiritual veins, you will be more powerful in the future. Avenge your master. Qing Wan shouted angrily from the side. Although 8 spiritual veins was already considered the peak in Wusheng country, compared to the geniuses of the 7 major sects, it was simply like trash. Chu Fengyan's opponents were the 7 major sections. How could this bit of spiritual veins satisfy Chu Fengyan? That's right, revenge. Chu Fengyan's originally calm heart was once again ignited. He had to have strength. Only with strength would he be able to kill his way into the 7 great sects in the future and avenge his master and his senior brothers and sisters. Endless transformations, open for me. Chu Fengyan roared. Countless sword wills condensed into sky-devouring pythons within Chu Fengyan's body, devouring the medicinal efficacy of the 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill. This time, There were as many as 7 heaven-devouring pythons in one go. At every moment, he was devouring the medicinal power within to nourish Chu Fengmian's body. Boom, boom, boom. Within an hour, Chu Fengmian had already opened 13 spiritual veins in his body. The frigid water on Chu Fengmian's body had already soaked through his clothes. Every inch of his flesh was now twisted in pain. During the cultivation of the broken bone rebirth technique, every time he condensed a spiritual vein, he had to break all the spiritual veins in his body and condense them again. Within a short hour, the spiritual veins in Chu Fengmian's body had already been broken and regenerated 9 times. As soon as the pain of breaking and regenerating ended, it once again filled Chu Fengmian's body. However, there was no change in Chu Fengmian's eyes. This kind of pain seemed to have no fear for Chu Fengmian. There was even some excitement in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Only strength could support Chu Fengmian's revenge. How could Chu Fengmian not be excited? Every bit of pain he suffered now would be his strength in the future. He now wished that the pain would be more intense, which would be enough for Chu Fengmian to condense more spiritual veins. Come on, let's see how effective this 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill is today. Chu Fengmian roared angrily and took the initiative to start devouring the medicinal power of the 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill. If Chu Fengmian was said to be carefully devouring the medicinal power of the 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill bit by bit, then the current Chu Fengmian had already transformed into a greedy giant snake and started to take the initiative to devour the medicinal power of the 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill. Countless sweat flowed down Chu Fengmian's body. His heart was not afraid of pain, but this physical pain was unavoidable. However, even if it was an enormous pain, Chu Fengmian did not make any sound. Even if his spiritual veins were broken, his expression was still calm and determined. 2 hours. 2 hours had already passed. Even Qing Wan, who was at the side, kept looking at Chu Fengmian. She wanted to see when Chu Fengmian would end. Currently, Chu Fengmian's body had already opened a total of 20 spiritual veins. This number was already enough to be compared with the geniuses of some of the truly large sections. However, Chu Fengmian still did not have the slightest sign of ending. Another 4 hours passed. The spiritual veins in Chu Fengmian's body were still constantly opening. This made Qing Wan somewhat in disbelief. Although this 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill was enough to be called the most tyrannical medicinal pill in the world, being able to open 20 spiritual veins was already enough to be called world-shocking. But now, looking at Chu Fengmian's appearance, the spiritual veins in his body were already beginning to charge towards 30. The 35th. Qing Wan already did not know how long Chu Fengmian had been opening. She was just counting time and time again, counting the spiritual veins that were opened on Chu Fengmian's body every time. It was already the 35th. This number, perhaps some of Chu Fengmian's senior brothers and sisters had already not reached it. Using the 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill to open up spiritual veins actually relied on a willpower. How long this willpower could persist was how much medicinal power of the 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill could be devoured. Once the willpower could not withstand it, this 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill would naturally lose its effect. The medicinal power within would also lose its effect and would be released. All along, there had been many warriors who could hold on to open 20 spiritual veins. However, those who could open 25 spiritual veins and above were already enough to be said to have a firm will. 30 spiritual veins could already be said to be a peerless genius. And the 35 spiritual veins that Chu Fengmian had opened up were extremely rare in the entire continent. It's still opening. Qing Wan looked at Chu Fengmian as if she was looking at a monster. Chapter 40. 35 spiritual meridians was not the limit. Boom, boom, boom. Above Chu Fengmian's body, several spiritual energies violently erupted, which caused Chu Fengmian's spiritual energies to expand. Another 3 spiritual meridians were opened. Seize heaven's secrets, cast divine meridians. Qing Wan looked at Chu Fengmian as if she was looking at a monster. Could it be that the legend is true? Sees heaven's secrets, cast divine meridians. This was the description of the 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill in ancient times. This seize heaven's secrets was to seize the medicinal power of the 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill. This 9 transformation heaven-seizing pill was refined from countless spiritual herbs that contained the purest spiritual energies in the world. The medicinal energy contained within was extremely terrifying. How much of it one could absorb would determine how high a cultivator's potential would reach in the future. The second sentence, cast divine meridians, was a rumor. According to legend, there were a total of 49 spiritual meridians. Ordinary martial artists could only open 2 of them. 3 was the limit. Only some geniuses could open more than 7 spiritual meridians. For example, among the disciples of some large sects, such as the disciples of the 7 major sects, it was not rare to see geniuses who could open 10 or 20 spiritual meridians using various elixirs and acquired methods. However, those who could open more than 30 spiritual meridians were extremely rare. They were the real leaders among the 7 major sections. Legend had it that those who could open all 49 spiritual meridians in the body were the legendary divine meridians. However, this divine meridians was almost like an illusory legend. There were only records, but no one had truly achieved it. Chu Fengmian's former master, the master of sword Dao, who was known as the strongest person in the world, had opened a total of 48 spiritual meridians. However, this had already reached the limit. Therefore, this also created a saying that martial artists actually only had 48 spiritual meridians. The true 49th spiritual meridians was just a lie. After all, the former master of sword Dao was already ranked at the peak of strength. Therefore, this saying was also widely known. The divine meridians were mostly just some illusory talk. No one had ever taken it seriously. However, seeing Chu Fengmian's appearance today, Qing Wan suddenly thought of this sentence. Before Qing Wan could speak again, another wave of spiritual energy fluctuation came from Chu Fengmian's side. 40 spiritual meridians. Currently, Chu Fengmian's body had opened up a total of 40 spiritual meridians. This was already an astonishing figure. Among all the martial artists who took the 9 revolutions heaven-seizing pill, there had never been anyone who truly reached this level. Swallowing the medicinal strength of the 9 revolutions heaven-seizing pill was not as simple as it seemed. The more they swallowed, the greater the burden on their bodies, and what followed was unforgettable pain. Many martial artists swallowed this 9 revolutions heaven-seizing pill. Because of the pain, they forcibly fainted. It was not that their minds were not firm, but that their bodies were unable to bear it. However, what Chu Fengmian was currently cultivating was the broken bone rebirth art. In addition to the double pain of the 9 revolution heaven-seizing pill, Chu Fengmian was actually able to open up as many as 40 spirit veins. Monster, truly a monster. In his previous life, Chu Jianbai stood at the pinnacle of the sword Dao without any spiritual energy. In this life, if he opens his divine vein, I'm afraid the world will change. Qing Wan looked at Chu Fengmian and whispered to herself. However, it was also true. In this world, only Chu Fengmian could die and reincarnate with this memory. Having lived 2 lives, it also created Chu Fengmian's incomparable willpower of soul, allowing him to bear such pain. 41st, 42nd. Time passed by minute, second by second. Chu Fengmian's breakthrough speed also slowed down a lot. Breaking through each spirit vein was countless times more difficult than the previous one. The current Chu Fengmian did not know how long he had stayed in this cave. The clothes on Chu Fengmian's body were also dried time and time again, soaked by the cold water again and again. He sat in the cave and did not move at all. In Chu Fengmian's mind, there was only the thought of continuously swallowing the spiritual energy of the 9 revolutions heaven-seizing pill to open up spirit veins. 48th. After an unknown amount of time, spiritual energy once again burst out from Chu Fengmian's body. 48th Spirit Vein. This was already the limit of martial artists. It was the limit that countless monsters and genius martial artists in history could reach. Even Chu Fumian's master, the master of the Sword Dao, stopped at this step. Do the legendary divine veins really exist? Let me see for myself. Qing Wan secretly whispered to himself. His eyes were full of expectation. He also wanted to see with his own eyes whether the legendary divine vein could be born. Bang! Behind Chu Fumian, countless spirit veins appeared one by one. Through Chu Fumian's clothes, one could clearly see that Chu Fumian's back was now covered with spirit veins. These spirit veins seemed to form a formation map, but the center of this formation map was pitch black. It seemed that only a little bit was needed to complete it. The last spirit vein, the 49th spirit vein, actually exists. When Qing Wan saw this scene, he also knew that this last point was the last spirit vein on the martial artist's body, the 49th spirit vein. The existence of this spirit vein was not fake, but whether it could be broken through, Qing Wan was not sure. After all, countless geniuses had not broken through this point. Was it possible for the current Chu Fumian? Break for me! Chu Fumian roared crazily. The 9-revolution heaven-seizing pill in his mouth had been completely devoured. All of the medicinal power of the 9-revolution heaven-seizing pill had been devoured by Chu Fumian. Now, he also understood that this was the last barrier. Bang! 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 On Chu Fumian's body and arms, blue veins were exposed, and cracks suddenly burst open. On Chu Fumian's skin, there were cracks, and countless blood flowed out. This was the result of forcefully breaking through the spirit vein. If he kept trying and failed, he might even be directly killed by the power of the backlash. In history, there were also countless martial artists who were killed by the backlash when they tried to break through the spirit vein. Chu Fumian, if you can't do it, don't force yourself anymore. Qing Wan shouted anxiously. He did not want to see Chu Fumian, who had painstakingly broken through 48 spirit veins, die at the last breakthrough. No, I want to break through. Chu Fumian said sternly. He wanted to break through. In order to take revenge, in order to defeat the 7 major sects, he had to break through. Chapter 41. Isn't it just the last spiritual vein? Open for me. Countless ferocious sword intents erupted around Chu Fumian's body. This sword intent was almost all of Chu Fumian's comprehension in his previous life. The sword intents were all added to Chu Fumian's body, increasing Chu Fumian's strength for the final impact. Boom! With one impact, Chu Fumian's body began to tremble crazily. His flesh and blood were trembling as if he couldn't hold on any longer. However, Chu Fumian's will remained unchanged. Create the divine vein. The legendary divine vein. Chu Fumian was going to create it for them to see. Open, open, open. The 3 consecutive words represented Chu Fumian's 3 attacks on the last spiritual vein. The spiritual power on his body had expanded to the extreme, causing Chu Fumian's body to become a huge ball. The spiritual power of the 48 spiritual veins had been completely activated by Chu Fumian. Today, he had to open the last spiritual vein. Chu Fumian, give up first. If this continues, your body won't be able to hold on. You have already opened 48 spiritual veins. In the future, there will be plenty of time to break through the last one and create the divine vein. Qing Wan hurriedly advised from aside. He didn't dare to imagine Chu Fumian dying in front of him now. Chu Fumian's current behavior was simply walking on a tightrope. If he failed to break through and mobilized so much spiritual power with Chu Fumian's current body, Chu Fumian would probably explode and die in an instant. No, Chu Fumian shook his head. If he gave up this time, he would never be able to create the divine vein. Many mysteries forging the divine vein. Chu Fumian had heard this sentence before, but at that time, Chu Fumian only thought that it was made up to brag about the effect of the 9-transformation heaven-seizing pill. But now, at this last step, Chu Fumian was breaking through. If he wanted to forge the divine vein, he had to do it in one go. He had to use this opportunity to succeed in one go. Otherwise, no matter how many opportunities he looked for in the future, it would be meaningless. Therefore, he must not give up this time. Finally, open for me. As soon as Chu Fengmian roared, a boundless amount of spiritual energy erupted from Chu Fengmian. The spirit veins in Chu Fengmian's body dimmed under the pressure of the spiritual power. Failed. Qing Luan hurried forward, and her expression changed when she saw this scene. Chu Fengmian's spirit veins had all dimmed. Did that mean that Chu Fengmian had failed? No. Chu Fengmian slowly stood up. Indeed, not a single spiritual vein could be seen on Chu Fengmian's body. However, a pure spiritual energy could be clearly felt from Chu Fengmian's body. This spiritual energy was much purer than the most powerful spiritual energy in the world, as if it did not belong to this world. Is this the divine vein? Chu Fengmian's mind flickered, and a series of spirit veins appeared behind him. These spirit veins perfectly reflected a diagram. This image seemed to reflect a continent. 9 zones. This is the 9 zones. When Qing Luan saw this pattern, she recognized it at a glance. This pattern was the appearance of the 9 zones. In the world, there were a total of 9 zones. These 9 zones represented everything in this world. She did not expect that all 49 spirit veins in this person's body would reflect the appearance of the 9 zones. So this person's spirit veins actually represent the 9 zones? Qing Luan looked at Chu Fengmian and sighed. It's enough to be able to see the divine vein at the last moment. As soon as her voice fell, Qing Luan's figure gradually dissipated and turned into a cloud of dust. Qing Luan had been persisting because she wanted to see the final result. Now that Chu Fengmian's divine vein had been condensed, his spiritual energy was finally exhausted, and his soul dissipated. Condensing the divine vein is indeed different from ordinary spirit veins. Chu Fengmian whispered to himself. The moment Chu Fengmian condensed the divine vein, he felt that it was completely different from the previous spirit veins. In the past, even if Chu Fengmian used a tiny bit of spiritual energy, it would consume the spiritual energy in Chu Fengmian's body. However, after condensing the divine vein, Chu Fengmian felt that the spiritual energy in his body seemed to be endless. No matter how much it was consumed, he didn't feel anything. Nonsense, if the spirit veins are the same as the divine vein, then why would it be called a divine vein? Just call it a spirit vein. In his mind, someone seemed to have heard Chu Fengmian's words and suddenly roared at Chu Fengmian. Who is it? Is there someone? Chu Fengmian suddenly became nervous and looked around. In this cave, there should only be Chu Fengmian and Qing Luan. Now that Qing Luan's soul had dissipated, there shouldn't be anyone else. But where did this voice come from? Look at the sword in your hand. The voice sounded again, and there was even impatience in its tone. Sword? Chu Fengmian lowered his head, looked at his hand, and suddenly said, "You are the Bloodslayer Demon Sword? What Bloodslayer Demon Sword? Who gave it a lousy name? I am a Star Sword, the #1 sword in the world." The voice said with some anger. Those people couldn't control the power of the sword and were affected by the sword and turned into sword demons. Instead, they said that I am a demon sword. Simply stupid. The one who spoke now was actually a sword? Chu Fengmian looked at the Bloodslayer Demon Sword. No, it should be called the Star Sword. He was so surprised that he couldn't speak. He had never seen a sword that could talk before. Furthermore, it sounded like it had quite a strong tone. The #1 sword in the world. Kid, didn't you want to know the difference between the divine vein and the spiritual vein? I will tell you now. Xing Xian didn't seem to want to talk about the name, but continued to speak in his mind. Let me ask you, if a warrior consumes spiritual power, how should he replenish it? Of course, it's by swallowing medicinal pills. Chu Fengmian replied. Any warrior needed to carry some medicinal pills with them. If they encountered spiritual power consumption, the best way to recover was to swallow and refine medicinal pills to recover. This was something that almost everyone knew. That's right. For ordinary warriors, swallowing and refining medicinal pills is indeed the best choice. But what if it's in battle? What if it's in danger? Xing Xian spoke again, and this time, without waiting for Chu Fengmian to answer, he directly said it. The best way to recover spiritual power, of course, is to communicate with the earth vein. Use the earth vein to replenish spiritual power. Communicate with the earth vein. A trace of surprise flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. Chu Fengmian naturally knew what the earth vein was. Under the 9 regions, there was a huge earth vein that contained endless spiritual power. Why did the spiritual herbs planted on the ground contain spiritual power? It was because they absorbed spiritual power from the earth vein. Chapter 42. Can a martial artist communicate with the ley line? Chu Fengmian could not help but ask. Heaven and earth were mysterious, and there were no martial artists who could do this. Even his master, the Lord of the Sword Tao, hadn't been able to do something like this. In fact, he hadn't even imagined it. Ordinary martial artists can't, but it doesn't mean that you can't. Xing Xian heard Chu Fengmian's question and said sternly, "Open your divine pulse now. Don't you feel that the spiritual energy in your body seems to be inexhaustible? This is actually a symbol of communicating with the ley line. Opening the spiritual pulse is to communicate with the ley line of the 9 regions. Only by opening all the spiritual pulses will it transform into a divine pulse. This way, you can communicate with the ley line of the 9 regions. From the ley line of the 9 regions, to seize the spiritual power," Xing Xian continued. "Otherwise, why do you think the divine pulse has endless spiritual power? No matter how strong the spiritual power is, it will be exhausted sooner or later. However, if it is able to communicate with the ley line, it is equivalent to replenishing spiritual power at all times. This way, it is truly endless." "I see." After hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian was enlightened. Indeed, he had doubts just now. No matter how many spiritual pulses Chu Fengmian opened, there was an upper limit. The spiritual power in it could not be endless. When using spiritual power, one could still feel the consumption. It was impossible that there was no consumption. It seemed that the spiritual power that Chu Fengmian had consumed should be connected to the earth vein by the divine vein to restore all the spiritual power that Chu Fengmian had consumed. You're lucky. Not only did you cultivate the cultivation method of the Huangxian sect, but you also obtained the Xianhuang ancient elixir. That's why you can open the divine pulse." Xing Xian looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a sigh, "Divine pulse is the cultivation method of the Huangxian sect? Xianhuang ancient elixir?" Hearing Xing Xian's words, Chu Fengmian was puzzled. He had never heard of these unfamiliar words in his previous life. "The cultivation method that I cultivate is obviously the broken bones rebirth technique. The cultivation method that you cultivate is actually the entry cultivation method of the Huangxian sect. The elixir just now was the Xianhuang ancient elixir." Xing Xian looked at Chu Fengmian and could not help but sigh. After so many years, the Huangxian sect has been forgotten. It seems that no one knows its past glory. "Kid, since you have already cultivated the pulse, you don't have to cultivate the broken bones rebirth technique. This spell seems to be very suitable for your body," Xing Xian said. A line of words suddenly appeared in Chu Fengmian's mind. These words gradually condensed into the appearance of an ancient book. There were 3 big words written on it. At first glance, there was a feeling of boundless fighting spirit within them. As Chu Fengmian flipped through the pages, his eyes widened even more. The ancient war dragon was a heaven-defying divine beast. Back then, it was undoubtedly a supreme overlord. Many of the dragon tribes today were descendants of the ancient war dragon. Even though their bloodlines were not pure, they were still earth-shattering almighties. But in the dragon war technique, the ancient war dragon was treated as a combat unit. Just like the first level of the dragon war technique, when cultivated to the extreme, it was comparable to the strength of a real ancient war dragon. Then, there was the second level and the third level. However, the latter part of the content did not appear. With your current strength, the first level is enough for you to cultivate. Xing Xian looked at Chu Fengmian's disappointed face and said calmly, "Being able to cultivate the first level of the dragon war technique is enough for you to establish yourself in this continent." Chu Fengmian nodded. Although the strength of an ancient war dragon was not enough to be ranked at the top of the 9 regions, it was invincible in Wuxing country. Even in the entire 9 regions, it was considered an expert. This was only the first level of the Dragon War technique. The second and third levels would be even more terrifying. After cultivating the Dragon War technique, I will definitely kill my way into the 7 major sects in the future. I will avenge my master. Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with determination. The Dragon War technique gave Chu Fengmian more hope. Let me see how to cultivate the Dragon War technique. Chu Fengmian flipped through the Dragon War technique in his mind and read it carefully. This battle dragon tactic can only be cultivated by martial artists with divine veins. Chu Fengmian was shocked when he saw the first rule. The first rule to cultivate the Dragon War technique was that one must be a martial artist with divine pulse to cultivate it. It was no wonder that such a shocking cultivation technique was unknown in the 9 regions. Martial artists with divine pulse were legendary figures. At least Chu Fengmian did not know that there was another martial artist with divine pulse. This was a cultivation technique that could not be cultivated. Just the first rule alone was enough to make everyone retreat. You want to possess the strength of an ancient war dragon with a human body, not divine pulse. How can you do it if you can't communicate with the earth vein? Xing Xian said coldly from the side. A human's body was much weaker than an ancient war dragon's body. Only the holy pulse could absorb spiritual energy from the earth vein endlessly to cultivate the war dragon skill. Otherwise, if it were an ordinary martial artist, even if he had opened 48 spiritual veins, he would have been sucked dry in an instant. The first step of the Dragon War technique is to condense dragon blood. I'm afraid that I can only condense 1 drop of dragon blood at my full strength. Chu Fengmian said as he flipped through the Dragon War technique. Even if Chu Fengmian had opened his divine pulse, his strength was still too weak. He had not advanced to level 8 bone tempering realm because he had opened his divine pulse. The spiritual energy that he had used to advance his cultivation had almost been sucked dry by his divine pulse. That was why he had managed to open his divine pulse. Chu Fengmian sat on the ground and closed his eyes. He meditated and activated the Dragon War technique. The shadow of an ancient war dragon slowly appeared in Chu Fengmian's body. There were a total of 129,600 tiny particles on the war dragon's body. Each particle was equivalent to a drop of dragon blood. This number represented the number of yuan. When all 129,600 drops of dragon blood were condensed, it was equivalent to awakening a war dragon in Chu Fengmian's body. Condense. It was a loud boom. A dragon's roar was heard from Chu Fengmian's body, causing the surroundings to become extremely quiet. A drop of blood in Chu Fengmian's body quietly changed into a golden color. Chapter 43. This drop of battle dragon blood essence is enough for me to step into the body refining realm. Chu Fengmian opened his eyes. Only then did he realize that he had stepped into the body refinement realm. This was only the result of condensing the first drop of battle dragon water. The description of this war dragon skill is indeed true. A drop of war dragon essence blood is sufficient for me to step into the body refinement stage. If all 129,600 drops of dragon blood are gathered in the future, my strength will likely be comparable to an ancient war dragon. Chu Fengmian exclaimed in his heart. The profundity of this technique surpassed any technique that Chu Fengmian knew of. The techniques of the 7 great sects and the techniques of the hidden sacred grounds were not worth mentioning in front of this battle dragon technique. All right, Xian Xing, how long have I been in this cave dwelling? Chu Fengmian suddenly asked Xian Xing beside him. He had been cultivating since he came to this cave dwelling. First, he condensed the divine veins. Then he condensed the dragon blood. He did not know how long it had been. About 2 months. What's wrong? Xian Xing replied. More than 2 months. In addition to the time I spent cultivating in the barbaric mountain range, I'm afraid it's almost 3 months. Chu Fengmian calculated in his heart. He had spent more than 10 days cultivating in the barbaric mountains. In addition, he had spent more than 2 months in the cave. He was afraid that there was not much time left before the 3-month agreement that Chu Fengmian had made with the 5th elder. Chu Fengmian had always been a man of his word. He had to return for this battle. Xian Xing, are you going to be kept in the storage pouch? Chu Fengmian looked at Xian Xing, not knowing what to do. Now that he knew that this Xian Xing was the weapon spirit of the bloodlust demon sword, he felt a little strange when he kept it in his storage pouch. However, Chu Fengmian didn't dare to carry the bloodlust demon sword with him. After all, if it was exposed, countless experts would come to snatch it. The bloodlust demon sword's mystical properties were known by everyone in the 9 regions. You want to keep my body in a small storage pouch? After hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Xian Xing snorted and said arrogantly, I will possess your body. Don't worry. What? Before Chu Fengmian could open his mouth again, the 2-meter-long bloodlust demon sword suddenly turned into a purple light and flew into Chu Fengmian's right hand. It transformed into a strange purple pattern on Chu Fengmian's right hand. This Xian Xing's methods are indeed mysterious. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but sigh. However, this was also good. Chu Fengmian didn't have to worry about being exposed. Then, Chu Fengmian's mind flickered, and 7 spiritual veins appeared on his arm. After condensing the divine veins, Chu Fengmian's spiritual veins dimmed. However, Chu Fengmian could easily light them up. Unlocking the divine pulse was Chu Fengmian's biggest secret. He couldn't let anyone else know about it. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian believed that the 7 sects would use even more ruthless means to deal with Chu Fengmian than they did to the master of Sword Dao in his previous life. After all, the divine pulse was something that everyone wanted to obtain. Even some almighty warriors and ancestors would want to obtain it. Revealing 7 spiritual veins could prove that Chu Fengmian's strength had improved by leaps and bounds. Secondly, it wasn't too much. After all, there were also warriors with 7 spiritual veins in the Lin Mansion. Before Chu Fengmian left, he turned around and looked at the skeleton of the green lawn. He walked over and used his strength to lift the surrounding soil, turning it into a huge pit. Chu Fengmian placed the skeleton of the green lawn into the pit and buried it. The green lawn was an old friend of Chu Fengmian's in his previous life. Since he was dead, Chu Fengmian naturally had to bury him. After doing all this, Chu Fengmian no longer had any lingering feelings in the cave. Let's go, Chu Fengmian said and walked out of the cave. The pool was still as cold as before. However, Chu Fengmian was different this time. Boom! A loud sound rang out in the pool. As the sound rang out, a figure suddenly jumped out from the pool and landed at the edge of the pool. Surprisingly, his body wasn't wet at all. Beside Chu Fengmian, there was a thin layer of spiritual energy, like a layer of armor. This was the ability of the body, refinement realm, spiritual energy armor. Using spiritual energy to condense armor, one's strength was countless times stronger than a bone-tempering realm warrior. Because of this, even though the 5th elder was old, he still hadn't stepped into the body refinement realm. It was impossible for him to win. However, this time, Chu Fengmian had already stepped into the body refinement realm. In Chu Fengmian's eyes, the 5th elder was like an ant. Phantom! Chu Fengmian's figure rushed out of the barbaric mountain range. He used all his strength to activate his movement technique. With the support of the divine pulse, he didn't lose any spiritual energy. The divine pulse easily recovered the spiritual energy that he had lost. Good. If this continues, 2 days will be enough to rush back to the Lin Mansion. Chu Fengmian thought in his heart as he increased his speed. 2 days later, in front of the Martial Forest City's city gate, a figure suddenly jumped out. This figure was so fast that almost no one could clearly see the appearance of this figure or who it was. This person was Chu Fengmian. Lin Mansion. Today, the Lin Mansion was exceptionally lively. Almost all of the Lin Mansion's disciples had rushed back and were now gathered in the stands near the life and death ring. They were chatting with each other, and it was extremely lively. Today was the day that Chu Fengmian and the 5th elder had agreed to fight in the life and death ring 3 months later. This battle had attracted the attention of almost all of the Lin Mansion's disciples. For example, Lin Mo, Lin Yi, and the others who had been taught a lesson by Chu Fengmian had also come to the edge of the life and death ring. They were waiting. This time, let's see what that little bastard can do. He managed to stall for time last time. This time, it will definitely be the death of that little bastard. Lin Mo and Lin Yi were talking coldly. Previously, Chu Fumian had made a bet with the fifth elder to resolve the crisis. However, everyone knew that today was the day when the real battle would break out. In this battle, unless Chu Fumian stepped into the body refinement realm, he would definitely die if he faced the fifth elder. To step into the body refinement realm from the bone-tempering realm in 3 months, even the number 1 genius of the Lin Mansion couldn't do it. How could Chu Fumian do it? The fifth elder is here. Under everyone's gaze, the figure of an old man landed on the life and death ring. This old man had a head full of white hair. He appeared to be very old. However, the current fifth elder appeared to be a lot more spirited compared to 3 months ago. Chapter 44. The fifth elder no longer looked as dispirited as before. It was obvious that he had made ample preparations to deal with Chu Fumian. Even if he didn't make any preparations, do you think Chu Fumian can defeat the fifth elder? One of the Lin Mansion's disciples sneered. Who does Chu Fumian think he is to reach the body refinement realm from the 5th level of the bone-tempering realm in 3 months? Even the Vice Mansion Master had to spend half a year to achieve this. Don't tell me that a little bastard like him has a higher aptitude than the Vice Mansion Master. That's right. Chu Fumian will definitely lose this battle. Another Lin Mansion's disciple chimed in. It's almost noon. Why hasn't Chu Fumian appeared yet? He must have run away because he's too scared. It was none other than Lin Yi. He said with a vicious look on his face. If he really runs away, Chu Fumian will be a sinner of the Lin Mansion. He'll be hunted down by everyone in the Lin Mansion. That's right. Even if we have to chase him to the ends of the earth, we must kill him. Lin Mo said viciously. Both of them had been beaten up badly by Chu Fumian. Now, Chu Fumian hated them to the core. Chu Fumian, don't come. Although the third elder had a calm expression on his face, the sweat on his palms betrayed the nervousness in his heart. The third elder wished that Chu Fumian didn't come. That way, Chu Fumian might have a chance to survive. With his talent, he could still grow stronger in the future. If Chu Fumian had come today, the third elder wouldn't have had much confidence in him. Chu Fumian had gone from the 5th level of the bone-tempering realm to the body-tempering realm in 3 months. It had taken him, the third elder, several years to achieve this. 3 months was too short. Even the third elder wasn't confident in himself. Third elder, it seems like this bastard is going to run away. Running away is a crime punishable by death. If the Lin Mansion's disciples meet him in the future, the first thing they'll do is to kill him. The fat fourth elder, who was sitting at the side, sneered at the third elder. He didn't like the third elder to begin with, especially when it came to Chu Fumian. He had always been against him. Now that Chu Fumian had not appeared, the fourth elder's expression became even more complacent. As long as Chu Fumian didn't appear today, then the matter of Chu Fumian violating the family rules would be set in stone. Even if Chu Fumian had the identity of the head housekeeper of the outer residence, it would be impossible for the third elder to protect Chu Fumian. That's right. If Chu Fumian still doesn't show up by noon, then we'll consider him to have escaped from this life and death battle. The second elder, who is also the enforcement elder of the Lin clan, said coldly. Yes, if Chu Fumian doesn't show up by noon, even if he ran away without a fight and violated the family rules, the disciples of the Lin clan will definitely kill him if they see him in the future. Before the third elder could retort, the Lin family estate head spoke coldly. The moment he opened his mouth, he had practically eliminated all other possibilities. It was useless no matter what others said. Time passed minute by minute. The scorching sun was high in the sky, and it was close to noon. Since Chu Fumian doesn't dare to come, then let's carry out the family law. Elder of Law Enforcement, you can announce it. The fifth elder, who was standing on the stage, said coldly. The law enforcement elder glanced at the surroundings and nodded. Good. Chu Fumian ran away from the life and death battle. He has violated the family law and has committed a capital offense. All disciples of the Lin clan will definitely kill Chu Fumian if they see him in the future. Elder of Law Enforcement, you're really impatient. It's not even noon yet, and you've already violated the family law? A mocking voice suddenly sounded. A voice suddenly jumped out from the surroundings and landed on the stage. This figure was none other than Chu Fengyan. Chu Fengyan? He actually dares to come. Almost everyone was taken aback when they saw Chu Fengyan's sudden appearance. They all thought that Chu Fengyan had already escaped. After all, he was facing the fifth elder, and death was the only way out for him. However, Chu Fengyan came today. At the last moment, he stood on the life and death ring. Little bastard, you're actually here. This old man thought you'd run away. The fifth elder looked at Chu Fengyan with murderous intent in his eyes. That's good. Today, this old man will personally kill you. You little bastard. I'll avenge Xing. Today, even if you kneel and beg for mercy, this old man won't forgive you. This old man is going to pull out your soul. Place it in front of Xing Er's tomb. Ignite it. Let Xing Er's soul in heaven be comforted. Chu Fengyan had killed Li Xing, the only grandson of the fifth elder, Li Fu. Now, he couldn't wait to tear Chu Fengyan into pieces. Cut the crap, Li Fu. If you're capable today, I'll stand here and let you kill me. What do you think? Chu Fengyan's lips curled into a mocking smile. However, if you're not capable, who knows who will die in the life and death ring today? Little bastard. Arrogant. You're just a piece of trash. Do you really think you're someone? Hearing Chu Fengyan's words, the fifth elder's face turned red and blue veins popped out. He didn't look like an old man over 50 years old at all. As an elder, this old man naturally won't take advantage of a junior like you. How about this old man let you have 3 moves first? After 3 moves, this old man will make his move. The fifth elder stood where he was and looked at Chu Fengyan with a sneer. A layer of golden barrier slowly emerged on his body. Spiritual energy armor. The fifth elder was now using the technique of a body-refining realm martial artist. This move was almost invincible against a bone-tempering realm martial artist. He's using his spiritual energy armor from the start. This fifth elder is too steady. The crowd below was surprised to see this scene. It seemed that the fifth elder was extremely cautious against Chu Fengyan. He had used his spiritual energy armor from the start to prevent any accidents from happening. Another Lin Mansion disciple spoke up. That's normal. This Chu Fengyan's body movement and swordsmanship are extremely strange. It's not wrong to be cautious. Li Fu, are you really going to let me make the first move? Chu Fengyan looked at the fifth elder and sneered. Don't regret it when the time comes. This old man is a man of his words. I've never regretted it. To let you have 3 moves first against a junior like you, this old man. Before the fifth elder could finish his words, a crisp sound suddenly rang out. Slap! A resounding slap landed on the fifth elder's face. Chu Fengyan's figure seemed to be standing on the same spot without any changes. However, the left side of the fifth elder's face was slapped. A red handprint could be seen clearly. Chapter 45. What a fast movement technique. I didn't even see Chu Fengyan's move. Many of the Lin Mansion's disciples were shocked. They were all martial artists at bone-tempering realm level 7 or level 8, but they couldn't see Chu Fengyan's move clearly. All they saw was a flash of shadow. Then, the fifth elder's face was slapped, leaving a handprint. The handprint wouldn't disappear for at least half a month. Even if the fifth elder won this battle, he would have to bear this humiliation for half a month. What? Little bastard. By the time the fifth elder came to his senses, Chu Fengyan had already moved again. This time, Chu Fengyan's figure directly appeared in front of the fifth elder. This time it's your right cheek. As soon as Chu Fengyan's voice fell, another crisp sound rang out. Slap! The same crisp sound rang out. Another blood-red handprint was imprinted on the fifth elder's right cheek. This time, the fifth elder was already prepared. However, Chu Fengyan's palm strike still left a palm imprint on the right side of his face. Chu Fengyan's speed was so fast that the fifth elder couldn't react in time. How can this little bastard be so fast? And how is he able to break through my spirit energy armor? The fifth elder thought to himself in shock. He could vaguely see Chu Fengyan's figure, but his body couldn't react in time. Chu Fengyan's speed was so fast that the fifth elder couldn't resist it even if he saw it. Chu Fengyan's strength was even more shocking. The spiritual energy armor on the fifth elder's body seemed to be nothing in front of Chu Fengyan, and it was easily broken. Li Fu, aren't you relying on the spiritual energy armor? However, the only thing you can rely on is meaningless in front of me. Chu Fengyan looked at the fifth elder with a mocking smile. Unfortunately, the spiritual energy armor is meaningless to me. A golden barrier suddenly appeared on Chu Fengyan's body. The spiritual energy armor condensed on Chu Fengyan's body. Body refining realm. Chu Fengyan has stepped into the body refining realm. Transforming spirit energy into armor was an ability that only body-tempering realm martial artists possessed. If one hadn't stepped into the body-tempering realm, even if one was at the peak of the bone-tempering realm, no matter how strong a genius was, they still wouldn't be able to do it. Now that Chu Fengyan's spirit power armor had appeared, it meant that Chu Fengyan had really stepped into the body-tempering realm from the fifth level of the bone-tempering realm in 3 months. 3 months. 3 months' time. How is this possible? On one side of the stands, a young man looked at Chu Fengyan with eyes full of killing intent. This killing intent even surpassed that of the fifth elder. This person was the young mansion master of the Lin Mansion, Lin Qingyun, the #1 genius of the Lin Mansion. How could a trash like him possibly step into the body refinement realm in just 3 months when he had no spirit vein? Lin Qingyun had a crazed look on his face. He could not imagine how terrifying Chu Fengyan would become if he was allowed to continue growing at this rate. Shadow. With a low roar, a black-clothed man appeared beside Lin Qingyun without a sound. Find a chance for me. As soon as Chu Fengyan leaves the Lin Mansion, kill him for me. Yes, the black-clothed man replied and disappeared. None of this attracted anyone's attention. Good, good, good. As expected of Senior Chu's grandson, to step into the body refinement realm from the fifth level of the bone-tempering realm in 3 months, I'm afraid there aren't many people in the entire victorious Wu country who can do this. The third elder shouted happily from the spectator stand. He originally thought that Chu Fengyan would die if he faced off against the fifth elder. However, Chu Fengyan had broken through to the body refinement realm, so the outcome was completely different. As a body refinement realm martial artist, even if there was a gap between their realms, Chu Fengyan's strength was not without a chance of winning. Hearing the discussions around him, the fifth elder's face turned ugly. In the beginning, he had said that he would teach Chu Fengyan a lesson and even let Chu Fengyan use 3 moves because he thought Chu Fengyan would not be able to break his spirit power armor. However, Chu Fengyan's 2 slaps had humiliated him in front of everyone. At this age, the fifth elder valued his reputation more than his life. So what if you just stepped into the body refinement realm? There are also differences in the body refinement realm. I originally wanted to give you a chance to live, but since you don't want it, don't blame me for being ruthless. The fifth elder roared, and a long spear suddenly appeared in his hand. As the long spear appeared in his hand, gusts of wind swept around the fifth elder. As the long spear danced, it was enough to activate the wind spirit energy. The long spear was made of fine steel, and there was an inscription on the spearhead. It was a black-grade upper spiritual artifact. The vast wind spear. The Lin Mansion's defensive weapon. The vast wind spear. Why is the fifth elder with this spear? The third elder looked at the long spear in the fifth elder's hand, and his face changed. The vast wind spear had always been the Lin Mansion's treasure, and only the Lin Mansion master could use it. However, it appeared in the fifth elder's hand today. Mansion master, what is going on? The Lin Mansion owes the fifth elder, Li Fu. Now that he wants to borrow it, I'll lend it to him. The Lin Mansion master said coldly. Mansion master, this is against the rules. Moreover, the vast wind spear is used in the life and death ring. The third elder said hurriedly. The vast wind spear was a black-grade upper spiritual artifact. Once it was used, it could easily cross 2 realms to fight. The fifth elder, Li Fu's cultivation realm, was already higher than Chu Fengyan's. In addition to the vast wind spear, he wanted to force Chu Fengyan into a desperate situation. Uncle Lin, you don't have to say any more. I have heard of the reputation of the vast wind spear. I can give a try today. Chu Fengyan said to the third elder, hinting him not to continue arguing. The vast wind spear appearing in the fifth elder's hand was enough to explain everything. In order to deal with Chu Fengyan, the Lin Mansion even gave the fifth elder the Mansion Master's weapon. What else was there to explain? Chu Fengyan, where is your sword? Draw it out. The fifth elder held the vast wind spear and looked at Chu Fengyan. He frowned and said, previously, Chu Fengyan defeated Li Xing by relying on a strange movement technique and exquisite swordsmanship. Now that Chu Fengyan had displayed his movement technique, Chu Fengyan had yet to draw his sword. I don't need to draw my sword to deal with you. Chu Fengyan looked at the fifth elder and said calmly. Chapter 46. Make your move. Chu Fengyan's words were like a knife that cut the fifth elder's heart. As an elder, he even held the Lin Mansion's mansion protection weapon, the vast wind spear, in his hand. Chu Fengyan actually said that the fifth elder's strength was not enough for him to draw his sword. This kind of attitude was simply a form of contempt towards the fifth elder. Good. Arrogant kid. Let me see if you can still be arrogant later. The fifth elder roared, and the vast wind spear in his hand moved. As the vast wind spear danced, the surrounding wind was stirred up. Purple chi from the east. The fifth elder's spear turned and pierced towards Chu Fengyan. The power of the vast wind spear was extremely shocking. Under this spear, coupled with the fifth elder's strength, even a martial artist at the fifth level of the body refinement realm might not be able to withstand it. A gale swept down from the sky, and many of the gale condensed into miniature long spears, thrusting towards Chu Fengyan. In an instant, countless spear shadows pierced towards Chu Fengyan. This spear technique can't even withstand a single blow. Chu Fengyan glanced at the fifth elder, and his eyes were filled with disdain. In Chu Fengyan's opinion, this spear technique was full of flaws. The vast wind spear in the hands of the fifth elder was simply a waste of a heavenly treasure. Hand it over to me. Chu Fengyan shouted angrily. Chu Fengyan moved. The muscles on Chu Fengyan's body bulged as if he had turned into a ferocious beast. As of now, Chu Fengyan's body had already condensed the first drop of ancient battle dragon's blood essence. His body was no longer that of a human's. When he went all out, there was a hint of dragon's might. What a powerful aura! Chu Fengyan has just stepped into the body refinement realm. Where did he get such a terrifying aura from? In a battle between martial artists, one's aura was extremely important. Once one's aura weakened, he would lose the initiative in the following battle. Looking at Chu Fengyan's aura, even the fifth elder panicked. He could not control the vast wind spear in his hand and hesitated for a moment. Oh no! The fifth elder suddenly understood that this distraction had caused him to not be able to thrust out his spear. How could Chu Fengyan give the fifth elder a second chance? Break! Chu Fengyan clenched his right fist and smashed it towards the fifth elder. This punch shattered the gale surrounding the fifth elder and even smashed the spiritual power armor on his body, hitting him squarely in the chest. Immediately, the fifth elder's body was smashed to the ground. The vast wind spear in his hand flew out with great effort. Hand it over. Chu Fengyan looked at the vast wind spear that flew out, and a smile appeared on his face. He moved his hand and grabbed the vast wind spear. Stop! This vast wind spear cannot fall into the hands of that little bastard. Upon seeing this scene, many Lin Mansion disciples on the spectator stand were extremely excited. The vast wind spear was the Lin Mansion's most prized weapon. If it were to fall into Chu Fengyan's hands, the Lin Mansion would be utterly humiliated. Little bastard, get lost. A huge figure flew into the life and death ring and arrived in front of Chu Fengyan. He wanted to snatch the vast wind spear before Chu Fengyan. The person who suddenly rushed into the ring was the fourth elder. When he saw Chu Fengyan, he threw a palm at him. Little bastard, get lost. Fourth elder? I haven't dealt with you yet, but you've sent yourself to the life and death ring. Great, it's time to teach you a lesson. Chu Fengyan looked at the fourth elder's attack, and his eyes were cold. The fourth elder and the fifth elder had always been against Chu Fengyan. Now that the fourth elder took the initiative to come to the life and death ring, Chu Fengyan wanted to teach him a lesson. Let me get lost. You're the one who should get lost. Just as the fourth elder was about to grab the vast wind spear, his body suddenly stopped as he was grabbed by a huge force. Chu Fengmian grabbed the fourth elder's clothes with one hand and slammed him onto the ground the moment the fourth elder turned around. Boom! The fourth elder's huge body was smashed onto the life and death ring by Chu Fengmian. This smash shattered countless stone tiles on the ground. The fourth elder's strength was actually stronger than the fifth elder. He was at the fifth level of the bone-tempering realm. However, he did not expect Chu Fengmian's strength to be so great. After being smashed onto the ground, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, the vast wind spear fell into Chu Fengmian's hands. Since you dare to come to the life and death ring, it means that you've signed the life and death pact. Today, neither of you shall live. Chu Fengmian's eyes were cold. Previously, the fourth elder and the fifth elder wanted to join forces to strip Chu Fengmian of his identity and cultivation. They wanted to make him a slave in the mine. Although they did not succeed, it was Chu Fengmian who initiated the life and death pact. Now that he had the opportunity, Chu Fengmian naturally would not let the two of them go. Chu Fengmian, stop, the enforcement elder hurriedly said from the side. If Chu Fengmian really killed the fourth elder and the fifth elder, the Lin Mansion would be in complete chaos. The two of them are your seniors. According to the Lin Mansion's rules, offending one's superiors is a capital offense. If you step down today, we will not pursue the responsibility of injuring the two elders. The enforcement elder said coldly. His words were like an order. In his opinion, speaking to Chu Fengmian with his status was a supreme order. Chu Fengmian should obey obediently. However, he seemed to have forgotten something. The current Chu Fengmian was no longer the submissive Chu Fengmian of the past. Rules? Since the two of them dared to come to the life and death ring, they are enemies. Enemies who will not rest until one of them is dead. Are you going to change the rules of the life and death ring? Chu Fengmian glanced at the enforcement elder and said coldly, You are the enforcement elder of the Lin Mansion. When the fourth elder interfered in the life and death ring, you did not say anything. Now, you're talking about the rules. If the enforcement elder had stopped the fourth elder, Chu Fengmian might have respected him. However, when the fourth elder interfered, the enforcement elder did not stop him. In fact, he did not even have the slightest intention of stopping him. If he did not follow the rules, how could he let Chu Fengmian follow them? It is not up to a junior like you to judge my actions, the enforcement elder said coldly. Chapter 47. Enforcement elder, aren't you going overboard? The battle between the fifth elder and Chu Fengmian was decided in front of everyone. The third elder couldn't help but say. Moreover, the fourth elder had just interfered in the life and death ring and had already violated the family rules. The enforcement elder is a member of the Lin Mansion and should treat everyone equally. Lin Yin, you don't have to say anything about this. The two elders are the foundation of our Lin Mansion. We can't let them die in the hands of this kid. The enforcement elder looked at Chu Fengmian coldly and said, Chu Fengmian, this is your last chance. Hand over the great wind spear and step down. You're still the housekeeper of the Lin Mansion. Otherwise, I'll clean up the Lin Mansion today. Lin Sure, don't you dare. The third elder, Lin Yan, roared. Uncle Lin, you don't have to say anything. Seeing that the third elder was about to say something, Chu Fengmian stopped him calmly. He turned his head and looked at the law enforcement elder with a cold look in his eyes. Lin Sure, aren't the rules just strength? That's right, the enforcement elder replied coldly. The so-called rules were nothing more than an excuse. In fact, he was relying on his strength to suppress Chu Fengmian because he was stronger than Chu Fengmian. Now that he had shed all pretenses, he no longer had any scruples. Chu Fengmian stepped down obediently and hand over the great wind spear. Then you can avoid some physical pain. The enforcement elder said proudly. He had reached body refinement realm level 8 and was one of the top experts in the Lin Mansion. He was 7 levels higher than Chu Fengmian. Even if Chu Fengmian could defeat the fourth elder and the fifth elder, he didn't put Chu Fengmian in his eyes. All right, since we're talking based on strength, then let's use strength to decide. Chu Fumian's eyes were filled with killing intent as he looked at the enforcement elder and said word by word, "Lin Shi, do you dare to come up to the life and death ring?" Chu Fumian stood on the ring and stared at the enforcement elder. Arrogant. Many of the Lin Mansion's disciples subconsciously spat out these two words. Arrogant indeed. Who was Lin Shi? He was the law enforcement elder of the Lin clan. Only the top experts in the Lin Mansion could take up the position of the law enforcing elder. Among the current elders of the Lin Mansion, the law enforcing elder was ranked second only to the great elder who had always been in seclusion. A figure at the 8th level of the body refinement stage was sufficient to be called an expert of a generation in the surrounding 13 cities. Now, Chu Fumian actually challenged Lin Shi. "You want to challenge me?" Elder of Law Enforcement looked at Chu Fumian with a cold look in his eyes. He had never thought that a disciple of the Lin Mansion would dare to challenge him. "Lin Shi, kill this brat. This brat is arrogant and conceited. If he stays in the Lin Mansion, he will be a scourge. Their family Chu is the scourge of our Lin family." The 4th elder and the 5th elder, who were lying on the ground, spoke furiously. The bones in their bodies had been smashed by Chu Fumian. Now, they could only lie on the ground, unable to move. They could only use their mouths to talk. "The two of you are trash. You can't even take a single blow from me. How dare you speak?" Chu Fumian glanced at the 4th elder, who was lying on the ground, and kicked him. "Stop!" A figure suddenly stepped on the stage and blocked Chu Fumian. However, Chu Fumian's movement technique was faster. In an instant, he bypassed the figure and stepped on the 4th elder's chest. Immediately, blood spurted out from the 4th elder's mouth. This kick had almost caused his internal organs to churn. "I will spare your life for now. But remember, a trash like you has no right to speak." Chu Fumian looked at the 4th elder and said coldly. This could already be considered as a lesson for the 4th elder. If he continued to blabber on, it would be the time of his death. "Chu Fumian, do you really want to be enemies with the Lin Mansion?" Looking at Chu Fumian's actions, the veins on the law enforcement elder's body bulged. Anger. Chu Fumian actually stepped on the 4th elder in front of him. It seemed that Chu Fumian didn't even put the law enforcement elder in his eyes. "Junior, I will give you half an hour to rest and recover your spiritual energy. This old man disdains to take advantage of you," the law enforcement elder said proudly to Chu Fumian. Chu Fumian had just fought with the 4th elder and the 5th elder. Naturally, he had consumed some of his spiritual energy. Recovering spiritual energy after a battle was only for ordinary warriors. For the current Chu Fumian, it was nothing. Chu Fumian had opened up his divine veins and was recovering his spiritual energy almost every moment. The spiritual energy that he had consumed just now had been completely recovered. Now, Chu Fumian was in his best condition. "No need. If you want to fight, come at me." Chu Fumian glanced at the law enforcement elder and said, "You." The law enforcement elder looked at Chu Fumian with murderous eyes. "One ignorant brat. Do you really think that you are invincible after a few fortuitous encounters? Today this old man will let you know what it means to be a frog in a well. With your strength, how dare you be so presumptuous in the Lin Mansion?" Before the law enforcement elder's voice died away, his body moved. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of Chu Fumian and threw a punch at him. In the exchange, just now, the enforcement elder also understood that Chu Fumian's speed and sudden burst of power were extremely shocking. They even surpassed some martial artists at the 4th or 5th level of the body refinement realm. Therefore, instead of letting Chu Fumian attack, he would rather take the initiative to suppress Chu Fumian with his strength. Bam! Bam! Punch after punch, he crazily smashed at Chu Fumian. The law enforcement elder didn't cultivate weapons. Instead, he cultivated bare-handed punches. His fists were strong enough to shatter steel. He was known as the Iron Fist. The power of his punches forced Chu Fumian to dodge. He couldn't block them. Haha, Chu Fumian is too arrogant. A mere 1st level of the body, refining realm dares to challenge the law enforcement elder. I'm afraid he doesn't even have the chance to fight back. Lin Yi laughed loudly at the side. Chu Fumian's amazing performance at the beginning gave him a fright. Now that he saw the law enforcement elder suppressing Chu Fengyan, he was the first to jump out. Young master, it seems like you don't have to make a move. The law enforcement elder will deal with this brat today. That's right. If this brat had bowed his head just now, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to him. At that time, he will definitely be a great threat to me. The young mansion master of the Lin Mansion, Lin Chengyun, said with a mocking smile. What a pity. This brat is too arrogant. He offended the law enforcement elder. It seems like today is the day he dies. Chapter 48. What a pity. That old man must have left him this sword art. If I can get it and use it, our Lin Mansion strength will be greater in the future. Lin Chengyun's eyes were full of greed. This kind of movement technique was something that he had always dreamed of. Young master, don't worry. When this kid is about to be killed by the law enforcement elder, you can ask for it. The law enforcement elder will definitely give you some face. Lin Yi hurriedly flattered him. That's true. Let's see how the law enforcement elder will torture this kid. Lin Chengyun sneered as he watched the battle in the life and death ring. Under the law enforcement elder's strong attacks, Chu Fengyan's figure kept flickering. However, the law enforcement elder was not slow either. Every time Chu Fengyan dodged, the law enforcement elder could catch up with him immediately. It seems that I can't defeat Lin Chengyun with my sword art. Chu Fengyan thought to himself. In that case, let's compete with our strength. Battle Dragon. Chu Fengyan roared in his heart, and the blood in his body began to churn. That drop of golden blood fused into Chu Fengyan's bloodline, and Chu Fengyan's body swelled several times. Fight! With a roar, Chu Fengyan punched the law enforcement elder. This time, the two forces collided head-on. The law enforcement elder's punch met Chu Fengyan's punch and did not gain any advantage. The two forces were on par. What? How is this possible? How could Chu Fengyan's strength suddenly increase so much? Chu Fengyan, who could only dodge the law enforcement elder's punch, was now able to take the law enforcement elder's punch head-on. Lin Shi, aren't you known as the Iron Fist? Today, I'd like to see whether your fist is harder than mine. Chu Fengyan laughed out loud and punched out again. Junior, how arrogant. At the same time, the law enforcement elder snorted coldly and punched out again. The two were in the center of the life and death ring, punching each other. In this battle, there was no longer any skill involved. It was a battle of strength and spiritual energy. Every punch consumed their respective spiritual energy. It was a competition to see who would run out of stamina. Looks like Lin sure has won. The Lin Mansion master softly muttered to himself. In terms of strength, Chu Fengyan was able to fight against Ling Shi, who was at the 8th level of the body refinement realm, with his cultivation at the 1st level of the body refinement realm. This was already a shocking matter. Just based on this point alone, Chu Fengyan was already the number one in the younger generation of the Lin clan. No one could surpass him. But even if they were evenly matched in terms of strength, the foundation of their spiritual energy was not on the same level. Lin Shi's spiritual energy at the 8th level of the body refinement realm was countless times stronger than Chu Fengyan's at the 1st level of the body refinement realm. In a contest of spiritual power, Chu Fengyan was bound to lose. Not only the Lin clan lord, the 3rd elder also understood this point. Hesitation could be seen in his eyes, as though he was about to act at any moment. However, the mansion master of the Lin Mansion, who was beside him, had already noticed him. In an instant, the mansion master came to his side, making it impossible for him to make a move. Chu Fengyan is too arrogant. Today, I will teach him a lesson and let him know that the Lin Mansion is not a place where he can be arrogant. The mansion master of the Lin Mansion said coldly, "This brat has too many foundations. It seems that the old man left him many things. If I don't teach him a lesson, I'm afraid that the Lin Mansion will not be able to control him in the future. Lin Yin, don't worry. As long as he is willing to hand over those sword skills and pledge his loyalty to the Lin Mansion, I will not kill him." The mansion master of the Lin Mansion's tone was more like an order than a conversation. Within the Lin Mansion, every single word of his was absolute. Within the Lin Mansion, every single word of his was absolute. Although the mansion master of the Lin Mansion was talking to the 3rd elder, Chu Fengmian still heard his words. Now that Chu Fengmian had opened up his holy meridians, not only did he have boundless spiritual energy, but his five senses were also far sharper than ordinary people. Naturally, Chu Fengmian heard every word of the mansion master of the Lin Mansion. Do you all think that Lin Shi can defeat me? Then I will let them see clearly. Chu Fengmian's eyes changed, and the spiritual energy in his body suddenly became stronger. He punched at the enforcement elder again. The power of this punch was much stronger than the previous one. What's wrong with this brat? It has been close to 10 minutes, and my spiritual energy has been depleted by more than half. How can he still have spiritual energy? Seeing that Chu Fengmian's punches were getting stronger and stronger, the enforcement elder's heart was beating like a drum. Logically speaking, with Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy, it should have been depleted by now. Where did he get such strong spiritual energy? He's just an LV1 body refining realm brat. Let's see how much spiritual energy he still has. Elder of Law Enforcement gritted his teeth and unleashed all his spiritual power. Every punch was as powerful as he could muster. He did not believe that Chu Fengmian could hold on for long. As long as he could hold on until Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy was depleted, he would definitely win. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes passed. Another 10 minutes passed. The enforcement elder's spiritual energy was about to be depleted. However, Chu Fengmian, who was opposite him, still looked calm. The power of every punch was even stronger than before. The Battle Dragon technique was a technique created based on the ancient Battle Dragon. The ancient Battle Dragon was a race of warriors. They were born to fight. Now that Chu Fengmian had condensed the Battle Dragon essence blood, his body had the bloodline of the Battle Dragon. His essence was like a humanoid Battle Dragon. The power of every punch was stronger. He was a true fighting genius. Can't hold on any longer? Chu Fengmian laughed at the last moment when he punched. In such a tense battle, ordinary warriors could not even breathe, but Chu Fengmian could still find the strength to laugh. This laugh was incomparably mocking. It was as if he was mocking the enforcement elder for running out of spiritual energy. The LV8 body refining realm is just SOSO. Chu Fengmian said with a calm face, which made the enforcement elder want to spit out a mouthful of blood. He did not hold back at all. He was using all his strength to fight against Chu Fengmian. However, his spiritual energy had been depleted, but Chu Fengmian still looked so relaxed. Is this guy a monster? Yes, he must be a monster, a demon. Otherwise, he would not have such strong power. As soon as this idea appeared in the law enforcement elder's mind, it immediately expanded. Chapter 49. Chu Fengmian, now I know why you've improved so quickly. You've been possessed by a demon. You disguise yourself well, but unfortunately, you can't escape my eyes. The enforcement elder looked at Chu Fengmian and said angrily. His words caused an uproar on the grandstand. Possessed by a demon. This was a legend from the ancient times. It was said that some martial artist temperament would change overnight and their strength would increase tremendously. This was because they were possessed by a demon. Now that the enforcement elder said this, countless disciples of the Lin Mansion looked at Chu Fengmian. Indeed, Chu Fengmian's temperament changed drastically overnight, and his strength increased tremendously. This was very similar to the rumor of being possessed by a demon. No wonder Chu Fengmian's strength improved so quickly. It turns out that there's a demon in his body. The enforcement elder is wise. Today, this demon's arrogance will come to an end. Many disciples of the Lin Mansion said in unison, Mansion Master, please take action to suppress this demon and get rid of a big problem for the Lin Mansion. If we don't kill this demon today, he'll be a disaster in the future. Almost all of the disciples of the Lin Mansion thought that Chu Fengmian was a demon when they heard the enforcement elder's words. In their hearts, they couldn't believe that Chu Fengmian, who had always been a good-for-nothing, could achieve such an achievement. Now, Elder of Law Enforcement's words were even more in line with their hearts. Indeed, they would rather believe that Chu Fengmian was possessed by a devil, which was why he had such strength. Possessed by a demon? Chu Fengmian looked at the enforcement elder and said with a sarcastic smile. The enforcement elder was really good at finding excuses. What? Chu Fengmian, are you not going to admit it? The enforcement elder looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, you killed your fellow disciples and contradicted your elders. Even if you're not possessed by a demon, you're still a great demon. Killing you is a good thing. It's also a good deed for us. The enforcement elder shouted angrily. Is that so? Since the enforcement elder thinks that I'm possessed by a demon, I'll go against my reputation if I don't do something evil. Killing intent surged in Chu Fengmian's eyes. This was the first time Chu Fengmian had such a strong killing intent. This elder of law enforcement had inverted black and white, unable to distinguish right from wrong. First, he had used his strength to suppress others. Now that his strength had failed, he had instead slandered Chu Fengmian. Such a person must not be allowed to live. Kill. The word kill contained boundless killing intent. When the law enforcement elder heard this, he suddenly felt an endless murderous intent fill his mind, causing his mind to turn blank. His face was filled with horror. Now that Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the primordial war dragon, his killing intent was comparable to the fury of a real primordial war dragon. How could a mere enforcement elder at the 8th level of the body refinement realm withstand it? His face was deathly pale, and he no longer had any spiritual energy left in his body. He could already see his own death. Stop! Suddenly, a wave of spiritual energy bombarded Chu Fengmian. The strength of this spiritual power was much stronger than that of the law enforcement elder. 9th level of the body refinement realm, the number 1 person in the Lin clan on the surface, the Lin clan head, finally made his move. What? Does the manor head also want to save Lin Shi? Unfortunately, even if you make a move, you won't be able to do it. Chu Fengmian shifted his gaze, and, similarly, he struck out a palm at the Lin clan head. When the 2 waves of spiritual energy collided, Chu Fengmian was sent flying. However, Chu Fengmian, who fell, stood up again without any injuries. Is this kid still human? How can his muscles and bones be so tough? When the law enforcement elder saw that Chu Fengmian stood up without any injuries, his face was filled with shock. The Lin clan head did not hold back in the previous palm strike. Under that palm strike, even if he took it head-on, he would be severely injured. Both of his arms might even be broken. However, when he saw Chu Fengmian standing up, it seemed as though he was not injured at all. This kind of body was a little too tough. Chu Fengmian's primordial war dragon bloodline did not only affect Chu Fengmian's strength, but also made Chu Fengmian's body tougher. The primordial war dragon's body alone was enough to withstand the attack of a heaven-class spiritual weapon. Although Chu Fengmian was far from being able to do so, his body was many times tougher than an ordinary martial artist's. This palm strike only caused Chu Fengmian's body to tremble slightly. However, it did not cause any harm to Chu Fengmian's core. He is indeed possessed by a demon. How can an ordinary martial artist possess such a terrifying body? That's right. Please help us kill this demon and refine his soul. Let this demon never be reincarnated. Many disciples of the Lin clan shouted. The Lin clan head did not care about the words of the disciples of the Lin clan. He only looked at Chu Fengmian quietly and spoke. Chu Fengmian, I'm not an unreasonable person. As long as you tell us about your fortuitous encounter, we can decide whether or not you were possessed by a demon. The Lin clan head looked at Chu Fengmian and spoke calmly. As long as you hand over your fortuitous encounter, hand over your movement skill, swordsmanship, etc., and hand them over to the Lin clan, you can increase the strength of the Lin clan. In this way, you can wash away the fact that you are possessed by a demon. From now on, you will be an elder of the Lin clan. What do you think? Hand over my fortuitous encounter. Chu Fengmian looked at the Lin clan head with a mocking gaze. The Lin clan head merely wanted to obtain Chu Fengmian's fortuitous encounter. How could he make it sound so righteous? The reason why Chu Fengmian was able to contend with the Lin clan was because of his fortuitous encounter. It was enough to make the Lin clan wary. If word of this were to spread, the Lin clan head would be the first to kill Chu Fengmian. Moreover, even if there was a fortuitous encounter, it belonged to Chu Fengmian alone. It had nothing to do with the Lin clan. Dream on. Chu Fengmian spoke coldly. His voice was filled with mockery. Mansion Head, why aren't you killing him? Mansion Head, this lad is definitely a demon. He will only be a scourge in the future if we let him live. Many disciples of the Lin clan shouted with righteous indignation. Fengmian, you should listen to the Mansion Head. The third elder moved and came to the life and death ring. He walked to Chu Fengmian's side and said softly, "It's enough. The Mansion Head's strength is far beyond the Enforcement Elder. With your current talent, you will definitely surpass him in a few years. However, you're not strong enough now. Taking a step back now is the best choice," the third elder hurriedly advised. However, there was no change in Chu Fengmian's expression. Only when he looked at the third elder did he reveal some warmth in his eyes. Lin Clan, you don't have to worry about this matter. Chapter 50. Today, he will be the first to die, not to mention Chu Fengmian handing over the fortuitous encounter. Even if the Mansion Master kept his promise, Chu Fengmian would never hand it over. In his previous life, if Chu Fengmian was willing to hand over the secret of the Master of Sword Dao, he could still survive from the 7 major sections. However, at that time, Chu Fengmian chose to jump down from the heaven-ceasing peak. Now, if Chu Fengmian was given another chance, he would still make the same choice. Moreover, the person who would die today might not necessarily be Chu Fengmian. If you want my fortuitous encounter, come and get it yourself. Chu Fengmian sneered and rushed towards the law enforcement elder, who was lying on the ground. Now that he had chosen to fall out with the Lin Mansion, Chu Fengmian no longer had any scruples. The law enforcement elder was also an expert in the Lin Mansion. If he killed him, the Mansion Master would feel sorry for him for a while. Chu Fengmian, how dare you? Seeing Chu Fengmian's action, the Mansion Master knew what Chu Fengmian was planning. The law enforcement elder represented the dignity of the Lin Mansion. If Chu Fengmian killed the law enforcement elder, the Lin Mansion would lose its foothold in martial Linlin City. Why not? Chu Fengmian sneered. He had no scruples in the Lin Mansion. Since he had fallen out with the Mansion Master, Chu Fengmian would not show any mercy to his opponent. Sword! The black azure sword appeared in Chu Fengmian's hand and slashed at the law enforcement elder. Don't even think about it, the Mansion Master said furiously. He didn't expect that Chu Fengmian wouldn't even listen to him. He thought he could suppress Chu Fengmian, but now he was wrong. Chu Fengmian would not be suppressed by anyone. Even the experts of the 7 major sects could not suppress Chu Fengmian, let alone the Mansion Master of the Lin Mansion. Imperial Screen. Suddenly, the Mansion Master of the Lin Mansion attacked. A wave of spiritual energy blasted towards Chu Fengmian and the law enforcement elder. This wave of spiritual energy turned into a wind spirit barrier in front of the two. Wind control technique. This was the foundation of the Lin Mansion. Mobilizing the spirits of the 5 elements could only be done by warriors at the Divine Sea realm. However, the Lin Mansion Master was able to do this with his cultivation base at the 9th level of the body, refining realm. It was enough to see how miraculous this wind controlling technique was. It was equivalent to having the strength of a half step into the Divine Sea realm at the 9th level of the body refinement realm. Condense a wind wall? In front of this Chu, this wind wall cannot withstand a single blow. Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold, and the sword in his hand moved. This sword seemed to be gently thrust forward, but in reality, it contained an extremely powerful sword essence. The moment it came into contact with the wind wall, the entire wind wall collapsed in an instant. In the face of Chu Fengmian's sword will, the wind wall formed by the estate master of Lin Mansion could not even withstand a single blow. The rest of the sword penetrated the wind wall and pierced the law enforcement elder's body. This sword did not pierce the law enforcement elder's body, but it left a huge scar on his spiritual meridian. It was enough to make him unable to recover for the rest of his life, and he could only be a cripple without any spiritual energy. The high and mighty law enforcement elder of Lin Mansion had now fallen under Chu Fengmian's sword and become a cripple. Little bastard! The estate master of Lin Mansion was furious. Now that Chu Fengmian had destroyed the law enforcement elder's spiritual meridian in front of him, it showed that Chu Fengmian did not take him, the master of a martial arts family, seriously. The estate master of Lin Mansion was enraged, and he slammed his palm towards Chu Fengmian. Sword break. The sword in Chu Fengmian's hand flashed, and he slashed out with his sword. This sword contained 3 layers of sword waves, and it suddenly blocked the palm of the estate master of Lin Mansion. I've said that if I want to kill someone, you can't stop me. Chu Fengmian glanced at the estate master of Lin Mansion and sneered. His sword flashed, and another 2 rays of sword chi shot out. Suddenly, the 4th elder and the 5th elder were pierced by the sword chi, and they no longer had any breath left. Little bastard, our Lin Mansion will fight you to the death. The estate master of Lin Mansion bellowed. Not only the law enforcement elder, but the 4th elder and the 5th elder were also killed by Chu Fengmian in front of everyone. Chu Fengmian alone had killed more than half of the Lin Mansion's forces, and it could be said that he had chopped off one of the Lin Mansion's arms. This grudge could no longer be resolved. Great Luo, immortal wind palm. Endless spiritual energy gathered crazily in the hands of the estate master of Lin Mansion. Suddenly, a huge palm print slammed towards Chu Fengmian. The Great Luo Immortal Wind Palm was the strongest martial technique in Lin Mansion, and it was an upper black class martial technique. Only the estate master of Lin Mansion was able to learn it. Chu Fengmian could feel the immense pressure from the palm. However, as an ancient war dragon, he could only fight and not run. The war dragon bloodline in his body was trembling, as though it was excited to be able to fight with an expert. The more it was a life and death battle, the more it could stimulate the energy in Chu Fengmian's body. The divine veins in his body were replenished by the endless spiritual energy. Dragon fighting in the wild. Chu Fengmian did not run away. Instead, he went up to the attack. On Chu Fengmian's body, his muscles bulged. His entire body seemed to be filled with endless power. He looked like a humanoid war dragon. The immense pressure stimulated the ancient war dragon's fighting spirit in Chu Fengmian's bloodline. He abandoned his sword and clenched his fist, punching out at the estate master of Lin Mansion's Great Luo Immortal Wind Palm. A punch and a palm. 2 extremely powerful forces collided at the same time. Chu Fengmian's figure was forced to retreat several meters away, almost falling off the stage. The estate master of Lin Mansion took a few steps back as well. Although Chu Fengmian appeared to be at a slight disadvantage, it could be said that they were evenly matched. Estate master of Lin Mansion, you do have some strength. I'll come again in a month's time. Chu Fengmian laughed heartily. With a move, he turned into a shadow and walked out of the Lin Mansion. Don't run, traitor. Stop right there. Countless disciples of Lin Mansion chased after Chu Fengmian. Stop chasing, the estate master of Lin Mansion shouted. However, a few disciples of Lin Mansion had already chased after Chu Fengmian. There must be countless opportunities on this kid to be so powerful. If we kill him, we can get his resources. That's right. If we can kill him, we can become as powerful as him. He used to be a good-for-nothing without a spiritual vein, but he could grow to such a level. Give us those opportunities, and we will be stronger than others. Chapter 51. Those who chased after Chu Fengmian were outstanding disciples of the Lin Mansion. They were all at the first level of the body refining realm. When they saw that Chu Fengmian was trying to escape, they knew that Chu Fengmian must be injured. This was the best opportunity for them. Once they killed Chu Fengmian, they would be able to seize the opportunity on his body. A few pieces of trash dare to chase after me. Chu Fengmian turned around and sneered when he saw the Lin Mansion disciples chasing after him. He stopped in his tracks. Bastard, why aren't you running anymore? Seeing that Chu Fengmian had stopped, the Lin Mansion disciples thought that Chu Fengmian had run out of energy. They looked at Chu Fengmian arrogantly and said coldly, "A piece of trash dares to create havoc in the Lin Mansion. Today is the day you die." Another Lin Mansion disciple laughed loudly. "Kid, be a good boy and hand over your adventure. If you do, I can let you die a quick death. Otherwise, if I bring you back to the Lin Mansion, I will extract your soul and refine it in front of everyone. You're courting death." Chu Fengmian looked at the Lin Mansion disciples and spat out a few words coldly. The black azure sword in his hand flashed. "Ah, Screams rang out. A few heads fell to the ground at the same time. With a single slash, the Lin Mansion disciples were all killed by Chu Fengmian. Although these body-refining realm martial artists were at the same level as Chu Fengmian, their strength was not on the same level. Chu Fengmian killed them as easily as stepping on ants. I didn't want to start a massacre, but you're all courting death, Chu Fengmian said coldly. His body moved and disappeared again. He turned into a shadow and left the Lin Mansion in a few steps. Chu Fengmian would never take the initiative to start a massacre. However, when facing those enemies who wanted to kill him, Chu Fengmian wouldn't have any mercy in his heart. The only way to deal with enemies was to kill them. Let's go to the Thousand Weapons Pavilion. Chu Fengmian looked around and ran towards the Thousand Weapons Pavilion in a flash. On the other side, the Lin Mansion was in an uproar. After Chu Fengmian killed the 4th Elder and 5th Elder on the arena of life and death, he even crippled the Enforcement Elder. Half of the Lin Mansion's forces have been destroyed by Chu Fengmian. Father, why didn't you make a move just now and leave that little bastard behind? He has had countless miraculous encounters. If we allow him to continue developing, I'm afraid our Lin Mansion will be destroyed by that little bastard. The young Mansion Master of Lin Mansion, Lin Chengfeng, looked at the Mansion Master and asked in surprise. Earlier, when Chu Fengmian wanted to escape, the Lin Mansion's Mansion Master did not stop him and allowed him to leave. This made him very confused. The Mansion Master of Lin Mansion sighed and said, "If Chu Fengmian wants to escape, even I can't stop him." What? This answer stunned Lin Chengfeng. His father, the Mansion Master of the Lin Mansion, was at the 9th level of the body refining realm. He had cultivated the Lin Mansion's unique wind control technique, which was comparable to a half-step to the Divine Sea realm. Such a character actually said that he couldn't keep Chu Fengmian, a brat who had just stepped into the body refining realm. Take a look. The head of the Lin clan tore his robes apart, revealing a clear imprint of a fist on his chest. This punch was left behind by the last punch that had landed on the Lin Mansion Master's chest. This fist print had already hit the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion's spiritual meridians. If the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion forcefully activated his spiritual energy, he might end up destroying his own spiritual meridians. It wasn't that he didn't want to keep Chu Fengmian, but he couldn't do it. Hiss! Lin Chengfeng wasn't stupid. He immediately understood the helplessness of the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion. However, as the #1 genius in the Lin Mansion, he was now being trampled under Chu Fengmian's feet. How could he bear such resentment? Are you saying that our Lin Mansion can't even deal with such a little bastard? Lin Chengfeng said coldly. His tone was filled with unwillingness. He wanted to obtain the various fortuitous encounters that Chu Fengmian had. He wanted to trample Chu Fengmian under his feet. This was the first time he felt so helpless since he was born. As the young Mansion Master of Lin Mansion, he had always been the #1 genius and the #1 among the younger generation in the Lin Mansion. However, Chu Fengmian's appearance had trampled everything he had. Even his father, whom he had always admired, couldn't kill Chu Fengmian. I'm injured, but that brat isn't any better. He took the great Luo Heavenly Wind Palm. No matter how tough his body is, he won't be able to recover within a month. A brat like him wants to go against our Lin Mansion. He's overestimating himself. Our Lin Mansion has been established for thousands of years. Our foundation isn't something a brat can compare with. The Mansion Master of Lin Mansion said coldly as killing intent flashed across his eyes. I'm going to look for the Great Elder. Only the Great Elder can deal with this brat. He can also capture him and interrogate him about his fortuitous encounters. This brat can achieve so much in just 3 months. It must be his grandfather. That old man has left him countless fortuitous encounters. That old man is one of the top experts in Wuxing country. The things that he left behind are definitely not ordinary. Great Elder. Lin Chengfeng was slightly surprised when he heard the Mansion Master's words. The Great Elder had always been a legend in the Lin Mansion. None of the disciples of the Lin Mansion had seen the Great Elder in person. Only the Mansion Master of Lin Mansion and a few elders had seen the Great Elder when they were young. The Great Elder of Lin Mansion is still alive? Lin Chengfeng asked in surprise. There had been many rumors saying that the great elder of Lin Mansion had passed away. After all, he hadn't appeared for dozens of years. Of course, the mansion master of Lin Mansion said coldly. Dozens of years ago, the great elder of Lin Mansion went to travel with the great elder of that time in order to break through to the divine sea realm. According to the news a few days ago, the two of them had successfully broken through. Now, as long as the two of them are back, even if there are 10 Chu Fengmians, they will be easily suppressed, let alone one. The divine sea realm was a completely different realm from the body refining realm. Once a warrior reached the spirit sea realm, he was no longer an ordinary warrior. He could control the spirits of the 5 elements and manipulate the spiritual qi in heaven and earth. A warrior of the spirit sea realm was much more powerful than 10 warriors at the peak of the body refining realm. Because of this, the mansion master of Lin Mansion was so confident. As long as the 2 elders returned and Chu Fengyan came again, it would be the end of Chu Fengyan. For the next few days, don't provoke Chu Fengyan. When the 2 elders return, we will capture that brat. The mansion master of Lin Mansion instructed. Yes, the disciples of Lin Mansion at the scene shouted in unison. They were all scared out of their wits by Chu Fengyan. How would they dare to find trouble with Chu Fengyan? Lin Qingfeng's heart was filled with joy. Chapter 52. The 10,000 Tools Pavilion was also bustling with activity today, filled with martial artists. Chu Fengyan walked in and spoke to a servant at the entrance. Call your manager over. I have something to talk to him about. Who are you? Why are you looking for our manager? Our manager is busy every day and doesn't have time to meet a small fry like you. Leave. The servant looked at Chu Fengyan's cultivation and spoke with disdain. Although the first level of the body refinement stage was considered an expert in martial Linlin City, what kind of status did the 1,000-weapon pavilion have? It was beyond martial Linlin City. Even the Lin Mansion master would have to book a date in advance if he wanted to meet the manager of the 1,000-weapon pavilion. Chu Fengyan wanted to meet the manager of the 1,000-weapon pavilion, so the servant was naturally disdainful. Is that so? I didn't expect that not only the Lin Mansion, but also the 1,000-weapon pavilion. Chu Fengyan glanced at the servant and sneered. Brat, you dare to cause trouble in the 1,000-weapon pavilion? Men. The servant mocked when he heard Chu Fengyan's words. Even the Lin Mansion master didn't have the guts to make a move in the 1,000-weapon pavilion. So what was he afraid of? The quarrel between the two had attracted the attention of many cultivators. Look at that person. Isn't that Butler Chu? I heard that he has already formed his spiritual pulse. I haven't seen him for 3 months, and he has already stepped into the body refinement realm. Some cultivators had already recognized Chu Fengyan. They didn't recognize Chu Fengyan at first, but now that they took a closer look, they finally recognized him. Chu Fengyan's current temperament was completely different from his previous temperament. It was hard for ordinary cultivators to imagine that the 2 completely different impressions were actually the same person. He's going to fight with the servant of the 1,000-weapon pavilion? The servants of the 1,000-weapon pavilion are all arrogant and never put us in their eyes. It seems that they have angered Butler Chu. So what if he's angered? The 1,000-weapon pavilion isn't afraid of the Lin Mansion. If they fight today, he will be the one to suffer. Some cultivators were discussing, but their voices suddenly stopped. 2 venerables had already walked out of the 1,000-weapons pavilion. Both of them were at the first level of the body refining realm. In the Lin Mansion, they were already considered elites among the inner court disciples. However, in the 1,000-weapons pavilion, they were merely 2 guards. Steward Chu, aren't you very arrogant? Why aren't you talking now? Seeing the 2 warriors walking over, the manservant's heart was filled with confidence as he spoke coldly. Break his legs and throw him out. Yes. The 2 cultivators responded at the same time. As guards of the 10,000 Tool Pavilion, they naturally didn't care about each other's identities. Excuse me. The 2 of them shouted at the same time. Each of them grabbed Chu Fengyan's arms with 1 hand each, intending to throw Chu Fengyan away. Chu Fengyan glanced at the 2 of them. Exerting strength in his arms, he lifted them up and threw them to the ground. Bang! A loud sound was heard. Everyone looked over and saw that Chu Fengmian's figure was still standing in the same place, completely motionless. At Chu Fengmian's feet, the two guards who had just made a move were lying on the ground. Although Chu Fengmian was currently injured, it was still easy for him to deal with two warriors at the first level of the body refining realm. I'll give you one last chance. Call your manager out. Chu Fengmian glanced at the manservant and spoke coldly. This is your last chance. What chance? Brat, you actually dare to cause trouble in the thousand-weapon pavilion. Looks like you're really tired of waiting. Men, come quickly. Someone is here to cause trouble. Who dares to cause trouble in the thousand-weapon pavilion? A deep voice was heard all of a sudden. An old man slowly walked down the stairs. His voice was filled with endless majesty. It was the manager of the thousand-weapon pavilion, Xian Jingtai. The manager of the thousand-weapon pavilion is here. Steward Chu is in trouble now. Many of the cultivators secretly thought in their hearts. Manager, he's the one who came to cause trouble in the thousand-weapon pavilion. Seeing Xian Jingtai's arrival, the manservant hurriedly spoke. He looked at Chu Fengmian as if he wanted to see how Chu Fengmian would be thrown out. However, what happened next made his eyes pop out of their sockets. Xian Jingtai, who was originally furious, immediately calmed down when he saw that the person who came was Chu Fengmian. There was even a hint of a smile on his face. So it's Steward Chu. Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian and smiled. There was a hint of respect in his tone. That's right, it was respect. Even when facing the Lin Mansion master, Xian Jingtai was extremely calm. He was neither servile nor overbearing. When had he ever taken the initiative to curry favor with such a junior? The crowd couldn't help but rub their eyes as if they couldn't believe everything that was happening in front of them. It was the same for the manservant. He originally thought that Xian Jingtai would throw Chu Fengmian out without any explanation. However, it was the complete opposite as he welcomed Chu Fengmian with a smile. Manager, this brat just beat up the guards of our thousand-weapon pavilion. The manservant hurriedly spoke. Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian and then looked at the manservant. Suddenly, his expression changed as he said coldly, You are the one who offended the esteemed guest of our thousand-weapon pavilion? Esteemed guest. Before the manservant could react, Xian Jingtai had already looked at Chu Fengmian and spoke. This brat is insensible and has offended Steward Chu. As for how he will be punished, Steward Chu will decide. All right. Chu Fengmian nodded his head and didn't decline. He walked to the manservant's side, grabbed the manservant's clothes, and lifted him up. Will you try to throw me out just now? Chu Fengmian said calmly. He exerted force in his hand and threw the manservant out of the thousand-weapon pavilion onto the streets. Chu Fengmian didn't use much force in this throw. He only wanted to teach the manservant a lesson. He didn't want to hurt him badly. Chu Fengmian wasn't a bloodthirsty person. Although the manservant had offended him, it was enough to teach him a lesson. Xian Jingtai's expression didn't change as he watched Chu Fengmian throw the manservant out. Steward Chu, let's go upstairs. All right. Chu Fengmian moved his feet and walked up to the second floor. It wasn't until a long time after Chu Fengmian and Xian Jingtai left that the cultivators regained their senses. Since when did someone throw the manservant of the thousand-weapon pavilion out? Especially Xian Jingtai's attitude towards Chu Fengmian. Even the city lord of Martial Forest City wasn't so polite. Chapter 53. Chu Fengmian and Xian Jingtai went up to the second floor and sat down in the quietest room in the building. Butler Chu, why have you come to the thousand-weapon pavilion to look for me? Xian Jingtai asked with a smile. Ever since Chu Fengmian helped him resolve the backlash from Xian Jingtai's sword essence, Xian Jingtai had the intention to rope Chu Fengmian in. That was why he was so polite to Chu Fengmian. Now that Chu Fengmian came to look for him, he took the initiative to come. Xian Jingtai said as he sized Chu Fengmian up. When he saw that Chu Fengmian was in the first level of the body refinement realm, his eyes were filled with shock. 3 months. In just 3 months, Chu Fengmian went from the 5th level of the bone-tempering realm to the body refinement realm. This kind of speed was indeed a little fast to the point of being shocking. Although this speed was not impossible for the disciples of the major sects, Chu Fengmian came from a remote place. Chu Fengmian's resources could not be compared to the disciples of the major sections. To be able to enter the body refinement realm at such a young age, he was already considered a genius in martial foracity. However, Chu Fengmian went from a trash without a spiritual pulse to the body refinement realm in just 3 months. Before that, Chu Fengmian did not have a spiritual pulse. For such a drastic change to occur within 3 months, there must be an almighty existence behind all of this. This made Xian Jingtai believe that there was an almighty existence behind Chu Fengmian. Xian Jingtai's thoughts could not be hidden from Chu Fengmian's eyes. With Xian Jingtai's status, even the Lin Mansion Master would not be so polite to him. Chu Fengmian also knew what Xian Jingtai was planning. However, this was within Chu Fengmian's calculations. Chu Fengmian pretended that he did not notice Xian Jingtai's thoughts and said calmly, "I'm no longer the butler of the Lin Mansion. Shopkeeper Xian, please change the way you address me." Chu Fengmian said calmly, "Oh, then I'll be presumptuous. In that case, I'll call you young Master Chu." Xian Jingtai said, "May I know why young Master Chu has come to my 1,000 Weapons Pavilion?" "It's not a big deal. It's just that I recently went to the Desolate Mountains and obtained a batch of Yao cores. I wonder if Shopkeeper Xian needs them." "Oh." Xian Jingtai was slightly surprised. Chu Fengmian had indeed not appeared in Martial Forest City for 3 months. Who would have thought that Chu Fengmian had gone to the Savage Mountain Range? The Savage Mountain Range was indeed a place where countless martial artists liked to train. Here, they could experience true life and death battles to temper themselves and make breakthroughs. They could also obtain pills to exchange for money. Although our Myriad Weapon Pavilion mainly deals in spiritual weapons, we do accept beast cores, Xian Jingtai said without hesitation. Not to mention that the Myriad Tools Pavilion still accepted Yao cores. Even if they didn't, Xian Jingtai would definitely accept Chu Fengmian's current status. After all, with this friendship, it would be much easier to win over Chu Feng in the future. Xian Jingtai had already determined that there was an almighty swordsman behind Chu Fengmian. If he could get some pointers, Xian Jingtai's future achievements would be much higher. "May I know what kind of beast cores young Master Chu wants to sell?" Xian, can give you the price right now," Xian Jingtai said with a smile. A few beast cores was just a drop in the ocean for the Myriad Tools Pavilion. He didn't need to pay much attention to it. What he cared about was to win over Chu Fengmian and make him have a good impression of him. There are quite a lot of beast cores. "Shopkeeper Xian, please take a look." Chu Fengmian thought for a moment, then took out a storage pouch and handed it to Xian Jingtai. He had obtained quite a lot of beast cores in the Savage Mountain Range. To be specific, there were more than 100 of them. It was too troublesome to take them out one by one, so it was better to sell them all together. Xian Jingtai took the storage pouch and opened it. He was slightly surprised to see the various beast cores inside. There were more than 100 beast cores. 3 months was enough for him to hunt so many beasts in the Savage Mountain Range. The number was extremely shocking. However, this was only the beast cores that Chu Fengmian had hunted for more than 10 days. He spent the rest of his time in the cave, cultivating the battle dragon art and condensing his divine veins. However, these 100 or so Yao cores could be considered a considerable amount of wealth. Green-skinned bull, green-horned goat, double-horned rhinoceros. Xian Jingtai took out the beast cores one by one and counted them. These beast cores were quite common. Their prices weren't high, so it was easy to calculate. Beast cores below the peak of the bone-tempering realm won't be too expensive. 1 beast core could be exchanged for 10 bone-tempering pills at most. Is young Master Chu satisfied? Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian and said, 10 bone-tempering pills. This price was extremely high. Normally, these ordinary beast cores could be sold for 7 or 8 bone-tempering pills. The price of 10 bone-tempering pills could be said to be Xian Jingtai's purposely high price to win over Chu Fengmian. However, Chu Fengmian had no reason not to take advantage of it. All right, Chu Fengmian nodded, then let Xian Jingtai continue counting. These are, after taking out the ordinary beast cores, Xian Jingtai took out a batch of green beast cores. There were more than a dozen of them. Beast cores of bloodthirsty fiend wolves. These are rare items. Xian Jingtai looked at the bloodthirsty fiend wolves' beast cores and said with a smile, "These bloodthirsty fiend wolves' beast cores are worth a total of 1,000 bone-tempering pills. How about that?" Although bloodthirsty fiend wolves were also bone-tempering realm beasts, they were extremely ferocious, especially when they traveled in groups. Ordinary bone-tempering realm martial artists naturally wouldn't dare to provoke them. Even body-tempering realm martial artists at the first or second level might not be able to deal with a pack of wolves. As for the true experts, they wouldn't bother to hunt bloodthirsty fiend wolves. This led to the bloodthirsty fiend wolves' beast cores being extremely valuable. Next, some beast cores were taken out. They weren't ordinary bone-tempering realm beast cores. Xian Jingtai also took out the hunter spider and mountain barbarian bear beast cores. These two beast cores are worth a total of 1,500 bone-tempering pills. Xian Jingtai continued to calculate. There was only one beast core left in the storage bag. When Xian Jingtai reached his hand in to grab it, he was also shocked by an extremely cold qi. This is the Darkwater Cold Snake's Beast Core? Chapter 54. The ghastly water snake was a demonic beast with the bloodline of the true dragon. It was extremely powerful and difficult to kill, especially since the ghastly water snake lived at the bottom of a deep pool. It was extremely difficult for a powerful martial artist to kill it. The demonic core of a ghastly water snake at the third level of the body-tempering realm looks like it hasn't matured yet. However, there's a faint trace of dragon power in the demonic core. It looks like a pure-blooded, ghastly water snake. Xian Jingtai said word by word. With his experience, he could tell what was going on with the demonic core at a glance. This ghastly water snake's demonic core is worth 50,000 bone-tempering pills. Xian Jingtai finally said, "A total of 143 pills. That's a total of 53,700 bone-tempering pills. How about 54,000 bone-tempering pills?" 54,000 bone-tempering pills. This price was much higher than what Chu Fengmian had calculated. It seemed like Xian Jingtai was also buying at the highest price. "All right, 54,000 it is." Chu Fengmian agreed without hesitation. Chu Fengmian had no use for these demonic cores. He might as well exchange them for pills. Would young Master Chu like to exchange them for body-tempering pills or pill coupons? Xian Jingtai asked. 54,000 bone-tempering pills could not be carried around at all times. This method of exchange was naturally to exchange for pills with higher prices or pill coupons. Pill coupons were jointly issued by the 5 great firms. They could be exchanged for pills at the various trading houses. It was very convenient. Hence, many merchants used pill coupons to trade. Chu Fengmian hesitated for a moment before asking, "Shopkeeper Xian, do you have qi gathering pills refined by the Martial Prosperity Academy in the Thousand Weapons Pavilion?" "Qi gathering pills?" Xian Jingtai thought for a moment and said with a smile, "Of course. Would young Master Chu like to exchange these bone-tempering pills for qi-gathering pills?" "That's fine. How about we exchange them for qi-gathering pills at a price of 1,001? 1,000 bone-tempering pills for 1 qi-gathering pill." This price was definitely extremely cheap. A single energy-gathering pill could be exchanged for at least 3,000 to 4,000 energy-gathering pills in the black market. All right, Chu Fengmian agreed immediately. Since Xian Jingtai was offering him a bargain, Chu Fengmian pill, of course, Chu Fengmian. He was lacking in elixirs and needed to replenish his supply. Not long after, the young lady called Emma walked in with a few jade bottles. "Uncle Xian," she said. Emma walked in and opened her mouth to speak. Her voice was extremely clear and pleasant to the ear. Her every action contained a gentle and noble aura. It was likely that this Emma was not a servant of the 10,000 Weapon Pavilion. It seems that Xian Jingtai and Emma have some history. Xian Jingtai's strength was extremely terrifying. Last time, when Chu Fengmian helped him dissolve the sword intent, he discovered that Xian Jingtai's strength had surpassed the Divine Sea realm and had reached the wind-controlling realm. Compared to the Supreme Elder of the Lin Mansion, he was countless times more terrifying. To be S. The last time Chu Fengmian appeared, He helped Xian Jingtai resolve the sword intent and took away the treasure of the 1,000-weapon pavilion, the dark azure sword. Xian Jingtai did not expect Chu Fengmian to come again in exchange for elixirs. Xian Jingtai placed the jade bottles in front of Chu Fengmian and said, "Is there anything else young Master Chu needs?" Chu Fengmian thought for a while and said, "I need a quiet room for seclusion. I'm not sure if the 1,000-weapon pavilion has one." After the battle in the Lin Mansion, Chu Fengmian also suffered some injuries and needed to recover. Now that he couldn't return to the Lin Mansion, Chu Fengmian needed to find a safe place. The 1,000-weapon pavilion was the safest place. Even if the experts in the Lin Mansion wanted to kill Chu Fengmian, they would not dare to come here. What place could be safer than the 1,000-weapon pavilion, which was guarded by a Wind Realm expert? Of course, there is a secret room. I usually cultivate in the 1,000-weapon pavilion and have a secret room. If young Master Chu does not mind, you can move to the 3rd floor. Xian Jingtai said with a smile. All right. Chu Fengmian did not refuse and strode up to the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor of the 1,000-weapon pavilion was an independent space. There was a huge bronze door on the top of the bronze door. There were arrays engraved on the bronze door, and they were still in operation. I prepared this secret room for myself. I am afraid of being disturbed. Young Master Chu, you don't have to worry. I can guarantee that no one will disturb young Master Chu. Xian Jingtai said with a smile. As a wind-resisting realm martial artist, his words were convincing. After all, even if there were countless experts in the surrounding 13 cities, there would not be a single wind realm expert. Xian Jingtai was already an invincible figure in the 13 cities. Thank you, shopkeeper Xian. Chu Fengmian replied with a smile. He pushed open the bronze door and entered. The secret room was built with great care. The surrounding walls were all made with a precious material, pure gold copper essence. It was strong enough to block out spiritual consciousness. Even if one practiced sword skills in the secret room, there was no need to worry about the outside world. What great place! Chu Fengmian praised. He sat down and tore open the clothes on his chest. A huge palm print could be seen clearly on his chest. This was the result of the Lin Mansion Master's all-out attack. A martial artist at the 9th level of the body refinement stage is indeed much stronger than me. If it wasn't for the fact that I've cultivated the dragon-slaying art and my body is already incomparable to an ordinary martial artist, this palm strike would have been enough to turn me into a pile of meat paste. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. It was indeed risky for him to attack the Lin Mansion Master. However, with Chu Fengmian's current strength, the Lin Mansion Master would not be able to stop him. The Lin Mansion Master would not be in a good state after that punch. Chu Fengmian sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. He took out the jade bottles and placed them in front of him. These jade bottles were filled with energy-gathering pills. Excluding the ones that Chu Fengmian consumed in the barbaric mountain range, there were still 400 pills left. After consuming all 400 energy-gathering pills, Chu Fengmian could attempt to break through to the 2nd drop of dragon blood. Since I am injured, I can use this opportunity to continue cultivating the dragon battle skill. Although Chu Fengmian was severely injured, he felt that his strength did not weaken much. Chapter 55. The ancient war dragon was born to battle. They were born to battle and to improve their strength through battle. The injuries that Chu Fengmian had received from the battle of life and death had not only not affected his strength, but had instead allowed his strength to advance further. Chu Fengmian could vaguely feel that he had finally stimulated the power of the 1st drop of ancient war dragon blood essence. Only through battle could the most terrifying power of the war dragon skill be stimulated. The most powerful thing about the war dragon skill is that it is like the ancient war dragon. The more you fight, the stronger you become. Otherwise, why do you think the war dragon skill is called the strongest skill? Xing Xian's voice rang in his mind. Xing Xian usually did not speak. He would only come out when Chu Fengmian was cultivating. Now that you have gone through a tough battle, you have stimulated all the power in the ancient war dragon blood essence. Now, you could try to condense the 2nd drop of ancient war dragon blood essence. Xing Xian said as he looked at the energy-gathering pills in front of Chu Fengmian with disdain. The grade of these pills is too low. Even if you refine all of them, I'm afraid you can barely condense the second drop of ancient War Dragon blood essence. If you want to cultivate the War Dragon skill to the great success stage, you will need more pills. I know, Chu Fengyan said. He had already noticed it when he condensed the first drop of ancient War Dragon blood essence. The War Dragon skill required a huge appetite. Unlike ordinary skills, the amount of pills required to cultivate the War Dragon skill was 10 times or even 100 times more than ordinary skills. 400 energy-gathering pills was equivalent to 400,000 bone-tempering pills. This price was equivalent to several years of the Lin Mansion's income, and it was only enough to condense the second drop of ancient War Dragon blood essence. There's no other way. I can only accumulate them bit by bit. Chu Fengyan knew it clearly. It was absolutely impossible to gather so many elixirs in this remote Linwu city. Only by leaving Linwu city in the future and heading to a more prosperous place would he have a chance to obtain more elixirs. Chu Fengyan already had a plan in his mind. However, he had to wait until he was done with the Lin Mansion. Let's cultivate first. Strength is the foundation of stability. Without strength, everything is meaningless. Chu Fengyan thought to himself as he calmed down. He picked up the energy-gathering pills one by one and swallowed them. One energy convergence pill after another was consumed by Chu Fengyan. These spiritual energies were all stored in the illusory figure of the primordial battle dragon in his body. As the 400 chi accumulating pills were consumed, Chu Fengyan finally sensed the illusionary figure of the ancient battle dragon vibrating slightly. Chu Fengyan knew that this was the moment when one's spiritual power had reached its limit and could condense essence blood. Condense. Chu Fengyan's brows were tightly knitted. He circulated all the spiritual energy in his body and suddenly attacked, condensing it. On the illusory figure of the ancient war dragon, the second drop of golden essence blood was slowly formed. Ooh! Chu Fengyan only heaved a sigh of relief when the second drop of ancient battle dragon's blood essence was completely condensed. This condensation was extremely forceful. Just a bit more, and there wouldn't be enough spiritual energy. My cultivation level seems to have stepped into the third level of the body, refinement realm. He stood up and stretched his body. He felt that his strength had increased by quite a bit. The palm print that was originally on Chu Fengyan's chest had also completely disappeared. Since Chu Fengyan had inherited the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon, he naturally had the terrifying recovery ability of the ancient battle dragon. If it were an ordinary martial artist, it would take at least a month to recover from such an injury, even if he consumed elixir pills. However, for Chu Fengyan, 1 day was sufficient. This was the terrifying part of the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon. With my cultivation level at the first level of the body refinement realm, I am already able to contend with the mansion master of the Lin Mansion, who is at the 9th level of the body refinement realm. I wonder how much more my strength will increase with this breakthrough. Chu Fengyan thought to himself as he suddenly threw a punch across the air. Bang! A series of sounds rang out. There was a loud explosion in the air in front of Chu Fengyan. Chi condensation explosion. This was something that only a martial artist at the peak of the body refinement realm could do. Chu Fengyan's current strength had most likely reached the level of a martial artist at the peak of the body refinement realm, or even stronger. This time, if Chu Fengyan were to meet the mansion master of the Lin Mansion, he was confident that he could defeat him in 3 moves. Condensing 2 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence was already considered the peak in Martial Forest City. If he could condense more ancient battle dragon blood essence, he would be able to trample martial victory country under his feet. Chu Fengyan thought to himself. However, if he wanted to condense the ancient battle dragon blood essence, he would need an astronomical amount of resources. This time, other than the 54 chi amassing pills that he bought from the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion, the rest of the chi amassing pills that Chu Fengyan obtained from the Martial Flame Hall in the Barbaric Mountain Range. It was considered a windfall. Otherwise, it would take Chu Fengyan a long time to accumulate such wealth. Speaking of which, it seems like there is still a windfall that I have yet to collect. Another day has passed. It seems like it's about time. Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. He stood up, opened the bronze door of the secret chamber, and walked out. Walking out the bronze door, Chu Fengmian saw Xian Jingtai outside. When Xian Jingtai saw Chu Fengmian coming out of the bronze door and felt the change in Chu Fengmian's cultivation, his eyes were filled with shock. In just a day, not only did Chu Fengmian recover from his injuries, his strength also had a great breakthrough. He broke through 2 levels in one go, reaching the 3rd level of the body refinement realm. This speed was truly shocking. Even the geniuses in martial victory country would not be able to compare with Chu Fengmian. Although he was shocked, his expression was still calm. He walked up with a slight smile on his face. Congratulations, young Master Chu. Your strength has improved. It's all thanks to the 1,000 Weapons Pavilion's elixirs. Otherwise, my progress would not be so smooth. Chu Fengmian replied with a smile. Then, Chu Fengmian's expression became calm as he spoke. I wonder if shopkeeper Xian's promise to help me with 3 things is true? Of course, Xian Jingtai said resolutely. I have never regretted my words. Why? Does young Master Chu need my help? That's right. Chu Fengmian nodded. I need shopkeeper Xian's help to kill someone. Kill someone? Hearing this, Xian Jingtai looked at Chu Fengmian with some surprise. There was a super expert behind Chu Fengmian. If Chu Fengmian wanted to kill someone, he should not be needed. However, Xian Jingtai quickly understood. Since the expert behind Chu Fengmian was unwilling to show himself, he naturally did not want to be exposed. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.